Hello, one and all. This is CRP speaking to you live on Sunday, July 11th, 2021, the year of our Lord. And here I am with Censored Anon, Uber Soy, Wurzelroot, and Wheat Waffles. And we are going to be shooting the shit about all kinds of crazy ass stuff that's been going on in the world. And the reason I brought these guys on is because I think that the four of them are fantastic YouTubers. And I think that everybody who likes good content should be checking them out. And so, yeah, that's why I have them on, and it's a pleasure to welcome them. Welcome, boys.
Greetings.
Hey.
Yeah, let me go one by one, because that way, so each of you guys in the audience can hear what they sound like, and each of you guys can introduce yourselves alphabetically. Censored Anon, how's it going?
Hi, it's going pretty well, Coach Red Pill.
Tell us a little bit about yourself. You know, just like the bullet line, the bullet point.
Sure. I am a YouTube philosopher, essentially. I talk about my life experiences, and I make videos based upon my philosophy and touch on political subjects from time to time.
Cool. Uber Soy, welcome aboard. It's
thank
finally
you.
time to talk to you.
Yeah. Yes, thank you. Glad to be here. I'm a cultural right-wing YouTuber. I specialize in, semi-educational videos, sometimes responses to leftists, just my own thoughts time to time, and, meme videos. In the future, I will be doing some sort of a historical or alternatively historical videos, and also I'll do a video proving conservative censorship.
Cool. Wurzelroot, how's it going? It's a real pleasure to talk to you finally.
Yeah. The pleasure to talk to you as well. I've been in the internet sphere without doing anything for a while. I started out doing stuff on TikTok, essentially just making fun of internet prostitutes, and then I I got a bit more serious talking about politics and that sort of stuff. I got banned from TikTok like 8 times until they turned off my phone, so it literally could not connect to TikTok servers anymore. And then recently, I grew a following on Instagram. They banned me too. So YouTube is the next on the list to get banned from, it seems.
Yeah, and I want to help you to get there. Help you to get a big audience so that it can get canceled.
Yeah.
Remember, boys and girls, they only cancel people for telling the truth. Wheat Waffles is our final guest. Wheat Waffles, whom I have done not 1, not 2, but 3 videos about. It sounds as if I'm obsessed about poor Wheat Waffles. So, Wheat Waffles, it's a pleasure having you on, man.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's great to have me on this stream. And yeah, I do appreciate those 3 videos that you made about me. So I specialize in black pill content, which is mainly focused on the idea that your looks is the biggest determinant for a man's dating life. And my next video up and coming this Friday, hopefully, will be on the topic, who cares about looks more, men or women?
Yeah, looking forward to it. And by the way, all of you watching, in the description below are links to the channels of these 4 gentlemen. They're terrific. I suggest you subscribe to all 4 of them. I am. And even when you disagree, or even when I disagree with what they're saying, they have very good and very valid points. And so that's why I think that they are worthwhile to follow. So anyway, great to have you guys on. And the first thing I wanted to talk to you is about, holy shit, they censored Nick Fuentes finally. What do you all think of that?
The funny thing is that it happened right after the ADL released this paper on him. I just think that it was really inevitable, because wasn't he banned once before, or am I wrong?
Temporarily, I think he was suspended, but then
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, from my experience in getting banned a bunch of times, it really is like a random thing. Honestly, maybe this is something that you guys weren't aware of, but when I was on TikTok, I had like 200-something followers, 200,000 something followers, and I went on Good Morning Groyper with Nick Fuentes, and a bunch of journos got really upsetty spaghetti about this. And within hours, they had hardware banned my phone from TikTok. That's what actually got me. So he's definitely on a bunch of lists that you're not allowed to touch. And he famously went on TikTok a few years ago, right when I started. I started just because I saw that people were trolling people. The Nick Fuentes crowd were trolling people. And, I went on. I did it too. And you know, that's how I got my start. But like, you know, he is hard banned from pretty much every platform, and you know, Twitter just followed along. Finally, it seems.
Yeah, go ahead. Somebody was going to speak up. Okay. Yeah, go ahead, censored.
Sir, one thing I think that's interesting is that Nick Fuentes does place a lot of emphasis on optics and promoting a really positive image, but it seems that he's just, you know, being maligned just as much as everyone else is on the dissident right.
Oh, wait a second. I thought that he always thought that people who cared about optics were, quote, optics cucks.
Nick Fuentes?
Yeah.
No, I was actually of the perspective that he's the one who actually pushed a lot of like the caring about optics and keeping optical.
I thought the exact opposite. Ubersoy, do you have any insight on this issue?
Sometimes I watch his show. So when he says optics, he probably means something else. And sometimes he's pro optics, sometimes he's anti optics, sometimes he's for quote unquote American and not, you know, white sort of a movement. So he does sometimes uses rhetoric to shift certain stuff. But I do want to say one word about you know, how he got banned. And like, frankly, I expected him to get banned on Twitter after like the January, as they say, insurrection. I'm surprised he has survived for like another half a year. He was banned on all other platforms, and the primary reason for that ban, of course, for this particular ban, you know, you've got ADL to, you know, bitch about something. Whenever they do it, other people just they fulfill their wishes like they're some sort of eternal kings ruling everything. But in particular, this time around, it just works that sorry, I didn't sleep well. You probably,
no, that's okay.
I'll pass the word to somebody else.
Yeah, well, my issue with Nick is, you know, full disclosure, I interacted with him once on Tonka Saw's IBS show, the Kumite, back in, I think, 2019, or it could have been 2018.
Yeah, I actually listened to that, and he really went for your throat on that.
Yeah, I was on that show. I forget why. I was just shooting the shit, and he came on, and I was genuinely interested in talking to the guy because I was like, you know, this guy is saying a lot of things that I very much agree with. And I was trying to get a sense of the guy, and he just fucking attacked me. I mean, just like full on, just like, you know, he pulled a Gish Gallop on me and just attacked me relentlessly for, I don't know, 20 minutes or some shit like that. And finally I was like, okay, fuck it. You know, what's the point? And the thing is, see, after that, no intention of having anything to do with the son of a bitch, because why would I? And that's the key thing about Fuentes, is that he seems willing to attack people who are on his own side, which is dumb.
He is a gatekeeper. And if you don't line up with him, then you're against him. And he tries to push you out as much as he possibly can. And he's done this not only with you, but with many other creators.
We didn't even know what my positions were. We had never interacted. And my channel is not... It's fairly clear that I'm right-wing, but it's not really specific as to what kind of right-wing I am. And so this guy was attacking me out of fucking nowhere and uninterested in understanding what I thought about any issue, just interested in attacking me. Fuck the guy. I mean, I gotta be real clear. As far as I'm concerned, I'm like, I look at Nick Fuentes, and on a personal level, I am fuck him. If he drowns, I'm not gonna fucking save him. Looking at his situation now, I think that it's awful and really despicable that they keep banning people. But shit, they did it to Trump. I mean, so it's sort of like inevitable that they do it to Nick Fuentes. But the thing that I was always struck by was his willingness, his almost eagerness to just go on the offensive against anybody, even people on his own side.
He's like trying to do this sort of vague Trumpism thing, because it is something similar to what Trump did during his political career, especially like in 2015, 2016. you attack the opposition, you ridicule them, you make fun of them, and you get all the guys who are wanting to be your friends on your side, and then you kind of press forward, with your own perspective unchallenged. I've noticed that with a lot of the Groypers and the Groyper generals, is that it's almost like a cult-like following. Like any time there's sort of disagreement, and you have the Groypers like monitoring all kinds of like the internet for any type of like smearing against America First or Nick Fuentes or just disagreement. Like they go on the offensive. They send out their guys. They attack. They attack.
They go scorched earth. It's not
Yeah.
merely attacking. And it's stupid. I saw when Fuentes and his Groypers accosted Ben Shapiro when he was walking with his fucking family, with his little kids and his wife.
Yeah.
Dude, man. I mean, that just turned off everybody. Who'd want to be associated with such a crazy person? And I am not a Ben Shapiro fan. I think that he's, a hypocritical little shit. But to attack the guy, I mean, like almost coming across like you were going to do something to him while he's carrying his kid in one arm and his wife is pushing the stroller of the other kid. What the fuck? It was
I would probably say that this all is quote unquote irony. Nick Fuentes is this phenomenon of the new, I guess, Groyper generation. He's about the same age as I am. So, you've got all those quote unquote irony bros, and, essentially Nick Fuentes can be described as a person that went out of the almost like a 4chan meme culture, and like all of his positions, it's hard to even detect what they are in the truest form.
It's hard to pin him down.
Yeah, he looked at Trump, and the best, like, why Trump appealed to him the most is because he was sometimes trolling. He was, very narcissistic and, attacking the opposition. And Nick Fuentes is copying him, but he adds this new irony thing, and that's why he's very effective in this appealing to this young generation who does not understand that it's not okay to come up to harass Ben Shapiro's family. They think it's good. They think it's based, quote unquote, right? So that's my words.
Wheat Waffles, I know that this is way inside baseball for you. I mean, this is outside of your wheelhouse altogether. Or have you been following this political shit?
I don't follow any politics anymore. I used to, like, a couple of years ago, but
oh really?
Yeah, I did. But like my main sort of viewpoint just on politics in general now is that I don't like it because people often follow like a particular belief system or party because it will benefit them rather than it will actually what they believe is like morally correct or right, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, I understand your point of view, but I think it's a naive point of view because every political party has adherents because those adherents think that those policies will benefit them one way or the other. Either financially, or perhaps it will create a social condition insofar as help for families and whatnot that they would benefit from. I don't quite see how can I put it. That seems too pure. That you're trying to have people who only follow a political party because of principle and not self-interest, and that's just not the way the world works.
Not only, but like I feel that's kind of where like that's just like my opinion on like how politics is kind of like leading towards in a lot of times. Like it's the basic idea of like big companies, corporations, oil companies like fund like provide lots of funding
BLM,
for
bullshit or Pride Week. Yeah. I get it.
Yeah, so like big companies like fund and finance the more like right-leaning parties to like so they can alleviate their like tax like payments or something along those lines. Likewise, you will also get people who are benefiting from like welfare systems that the country might have. Like they're more likely to vote for like more left-leaning parties.
Mm-hmm.
Can I interject?
Go ahead.
I think you're talking about like institutionalized political parties that that they're trying to appear to certain stuff. When we're talking about politics, like we mean also on the daily life, because you don't necessarily have to vote for a certain party to be political. You can just produce videos like I or Coach Red Pill talking about, for example, social stuff and still influencing people, right? Like we live in only like two people here live in the US, right? And we're still talking about the US, and our opinion influences it. Was wondering what you think about that.
Yeah, fair enough. Like if it's a passion of yours and you follow like this sort of thing like in politics and that, like then fair enough. But like I just don't delve into that kind of sphere as much. I'm more interested in the like sort of black pill, red pill, dating and like girls attraction, things like that. Like,
Yeah.
I'm more interested in that sort of
It's
yeah.
important, but it is inherently political. If you go to like leftist spaces such as Rational Wiki, which is basically like their version of Conservapedia, of course, appealing as some sort of an authority, it is so incredibly political what you're doing. I'm not sure if you're part of the MGTOW movement, but this black pill, red pill, it's constructed to be as very political. So even if you're like not trying to be political and doing all these kinds of things, you're going to be perceived as political. Yeah.
So when I'm
Well,
thinking of solutions, like for this issue, like in the black pill sphere, like I'm not necessarily looking at political solutions. I'm more looking at like individual solutions. So what people can do on an individual basis to improve their situation. So like I remember in like there's this other really popular black pill YouTuber called ITV, and he proposes one of his potential solutions was to like it was some form of like affirmative action for people who are below a certain looks threshold. So it pretty much means like providing like payments to like people that
State provided girlfriend for
no, not
this.
that, not that. No, so like so
Okay,
say if
I'm
somebody
kidding.
is like significantly disadvantaged, like in the looks like sort of realm. So like if they're let's say if somebody's like 5'2", then
So
he
you get
proposed that.
hooker money from the government? Is that what? What's the?
No, it wasn't that. But like
State subsidized GF, right?
yeah.
I mean, well, so why don't you just date uglier girls then?
Yeah.
Bigot. Oh, sorry.
Well, no.
Not the proper context.
Yeah.
Right.
well,
So
like I feel like the whole point of what our boy was saying, I don't know who was saying it, is kind of like that. Like, there's not really anything that isn't political these days. Like
Yeah.
it's not like left versus right. It's sort of like two realities. There's the alternate reality which is being constructed for people, and it's honestly the purpose of the censorship, right? Constructing and maintaining this alternate reality, where if someone turns on CNN, if they turn on the internet, if they turn on anything, they're getting one narrative which hits on the same persuasive beats. If you read any headline, what is it? It's black man killed by cop. And it doesn't matter if it was a justified shooting. All that matters is that they have that headline, and that's what sticks in people's minds and helps support this alternate reality, right? And then there is like true reality, but everyone who's trying to push this or push anything counter to the narrative, they're chilled out of the marketplace of ideas. They are censored. They are taken off the internet, and that's what's happening here. And you can have like issues with Nick, but like I do think he cares about optics. That's sort of like the point of it, right? But it's a really difficult place to move in any direction, because you have enemies within and also enemies without. Like neocons and these corporate Republicans, and these guys who are pushing like immigration, legal immigration on behalf of corporations so that they can lower the the wages of people, because
Well,
that's what their corporate
that's right.
sponsors want.
Well, it seems
These
to me
guys are
that
just as dangerous as the left wing, and they're just as subversive, and they're damaging
Yes.
America just as much as the left wing.
well,
I agree.
it seems to me that Fuentes does want us to go in and be a voting block for the Republican Party. So how does that really differentiate him from the neocons? I understand his beliefs are definitely a lot better than them, but at the end of the day, he wants to take a lot of dissidents, make them into a voting block.
He wants to make them into a voting bloc, which actually like holds the senators or congressmen accountable to the people rather than simply to whatever lobby is willing to pay them the most amount of money to push the legislation that they've written for them. You know.
The issue is that from the bottom to the top, that the system is controlled by leftists, and they're not going to be accountable at the end of the day, because we don't subvert the system subverts you.
Yeah, and that's sort of like the main disagreement I have with Fuentes. I'm not like a cult member or anything. I just believe in America first, right? But I think the federal government is corrupt way too much. There's nothing you can really do about it. They'll just find votes in a trash can pile if you vote in mass against them. I think that like the state level is much more important, because at the moment no one cares about states. Senators are getting elected with 20,000 votes. State legislators, they're getting voted in with like 1,000 votes, man. And all of these like Republican county level things, which are getting funding from the GOP, they're boomer nursing homes. There's just 6 boomers sitting there, 90 years old each, and they're controlling who's getting put up into positions of state legislators. They're controlling who's judges and stuff like that. I feel like that's much more feasible.
And I agree, localism is very important. But I would say that there is like a dedicated presence in the local arena, because if you I don't know if you keep up with Project Veritas, but they did a story a while back of like this woman who is like in San Antonio, Texas, and she was getting paid by some outside sources to go and like convince old folks to kind of vote a certain way, and of course it was voting for Biden. And if you think about like that, if there's just an inkling of that, then it must be much more available on the larger scale. On top of that, like a lot of these Democrats in the individual states, they voted to change the voting laws. So basically, it made it much easier for people to do mail-in ballot votes, whereas previously in the 2016 election, it was much harder. So there is like a presence in the local arena by the system, and they are constantly working to our detriment, even if we choose to engage in the local elections.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, I don't think it's really like a debate right now if the federal government is corrupt or not. Like it is massively, it's insane how corrupt this stuff is. To the point where like, how do you expect any Congress member to not be corrupt or on the payroll of some corporation? Like they're the ones who write the anti-corruption laws. I don't know how many like non-Americans are in here. You said like the majority, but they write the laws, and the only way to get found of corruption as a congressman is if they catch you in writing with a de facto quid pro quo, like literally writing down, yes, indeed, I am going to give you this for that using my congressional powers and corruption, man. But what do they all do? They have some corporation, some lobby, give them a $500,000 fundraiser, organize it to get all this money for them, and then they will push through legislation, which was literally Citibank did this. Citibank lobbyists literally wrote a bill which would make it so that they would be bailed out by the taxpayer following the 2008 recession. And they just passed it, the exact bill that the lobbyists that they wrote in, and they didn't pass it in the first time, right? They tried to pass it as its own bill. It got shut down, obviously corrupt. They waited until we needed an emergency money bill, right, to fund the government. They just slapped it into the end and it got passed.
Yeah.
You're talking about corruption. I wanted to just butt in a little bit. Did you guys hear about the whole Hunter Biden thing, that he's now selling art for between $75,000 and $500,000? And the White House decided that in order to ensure propriety, so that nobody thought that there was any kind of corruption, that it would be like the buyers would remain anonymous of this art form, of these art pieces, rather. Have you heard of anything more corrupt? Hunter Biden is now a fucking artist, and he's selling shit for $500,000.
Oh yes, absolutely.
And nobody's saying shit. Nobody is saying shit.
The things he used to do in Ukraine and all this, other stuff, I think that was more corrupt. But yeah, of course, nobody's saying shit. Can I just respond to Wurzel Root? I think you look at the issue of, unaccountability, the problems with the federal government, etc., on a very like a surface level. And I don't want to misrepresent Censor Danon, but when he says system, and when I say system, we don't just mean like the Senate, the federal government. We mean the societal consensus on how things should be operated. So that includes institutions, that includes Hollywood, that includes like your average celebrities, that includes big corporations such as Twitter and who they should ban. That includes organizations like CPLC or ADL, Hope Not Hate, who just tell you exactly who to censor. The leader of the ADL, a few months ago, he said like, you should fire Tucker Carlson from Fox News. Like, you should absolutely do that. Thankfully, Rupert Murdoch hasn't done that so far, but I mean,
this is one of the results of multiculturalism. Because of multiculturalism, there is no longer a common culture. When I was growing up in the 70s, there was the notion of the melting pot. There was a cartoon called The Great American Melting Pot that every kid my age would listen to every Saturday morning. And it had a little jingle, and it was very patriotic. And the whole notion was that the United States was a great melting pot, that there were people from every country, every continent, but we were all in this melting pot where we all fundamentally had the same moral point of view, moral political point of view as to how things ought to be done. But with the prevalence of multiculturalism starting in the 80s and definitely into the 90s and onward, multiculturalism inevitably begets these multiple moralities, these multiple points of view on moral issues. And that's why the United States is so incredibly fractured now. And frankly, I do not see these fractures healing anytime soon. On the contrary, they seem that they're getting wider, and they are polarizing into two distinct camps: the regime and the dissidents. That's my point of view at this time. I don't know if you all agree or think different.
No, I think it's really funny because it's sort of like these, like, because everyone loves calling like the political elite. Also, I don't deny the political elite. I don't think it's just like Congress who's bad. I understand that, like, when I say political elite, I mean, the corporations, all this stuff, right? And these like institutions of power. But it's like these guys who like all the boomer Republicans will be like, dude, it's just fucking Marxists up there who are like controlling everything, dude. But like, it's almost as if they read Marx's work, right? And Marx was very specific about how race was an issue because the corporatists or the controllers, they would use race to turn people against each other and then make sure that no one was ever like attacking the right people. But so, is that sort of like they just like read that and were like, yes, that is so true, let's do that. And then multiculturalism happens. They start turning sort of everyone against each other, and more specifically everyone against white people, who are the most evil devils on the planet and need to be extinguished. And merely defending, hey, perhaps white people aren't blue-eyed Satan, is an act of white supremacy and terrorism. This is for the purpose of creating this like cattle-like class, which is so easily manipulated. And honestly, that's why I think it's a focus on secularism rather than spiritualism as well, because if people are just giving into lust, if they are giving into greed and gluttony, whatever gives me the most dopamine reactions, whatever feels the best in the short term is the best thing and the only true good. How are they not the most easily controlled cattle population, chasing after sugary Fruit Loops, marijuana, and easy sex bots from Toys R Us or whatever?
Class conflict really causes this continual divide, this continual atomization, and it creates like this like extreme feeling of unease in the populace. So everybody starts self-soothing, and I really think that this is the result of capitalism in our country.
Well, no, it's not capitalism. I'm a great defender of capitalism, but what we have today within liberal capitalism, quote unquote, is corporatism. Because you have the elimination of all competition and the creation of monopolies or oligopolies that
Mhm.
they are more efficient. Any second year economics student will tell you that an oligopoly or a monopoly especially is more efficient because competition is wasteful. And that was the fundamental insight of Alan Greenspan, who back in the 1960s started advocating for the monopolization of the economy, because he was of the opinion that so long as monopolies did not allow price gouging, monopolies were better for the economy overall. But the thing is that it's squeezed out. By squeezing out competition, you actually squeeze out diversity, and you also create these malincentives for the economy overall. And we see the wreck of the American economy today, but
Well,
all these monopolies.
so the trouble with calling it corporatism is that in a corporatist government, usually you have the different corporations that are in the same field, like let's say auto manufacturing. They get broken up and reformed into a single corporation that is completely beholden to the state. Whereas in our system, you have like all these auto companies that are all competing with each other, and of course, none of them produces really anything for the middle or lower classes.
Hang on, sir. And
Mhm.
the auto companies are at the bottom of the barrel, and they're only kept around as sources of employment. The bleeding edge of the
Mhm.
economy are the tech companies, and they are all allowed, nay, encouraged to be monopolies, and they all have deep ties with the government. Amazon with its AWS, which is one of the largest contractors insofar as tech is concerned with the U.S. government, federal government, and
Mhm.
you can go on through all the other tech companies. Okay, so I'm not really sure about that of like what you're saying there when you refer to the auto companies.
Well, I refer to the auto companies just because, like, that's one example of like where you have multiple companies in the same competing arena, and you could say like, yeah, they have they're all shaking hands behind their backs, and I think that's the same for the tech companies. But I do ultimately think that the corporations have more sway over the government than the government has more sway over the corporations.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think anyone is denying that.
Can I
I think.
blank up
Oh,
my few cents just to quickly to censor Dan on because I feel like he says that, oh, it's because of capitalism, and currently the capitalists what they're doing is that they're appealing to leftist ideas because they're selling well, right? So if our culture was actually right wing as leftists claim it is, then the capitalists would not push all those type of quote unquote degenerate ideas, right? They would be based as they
Mhm.
used to like 60 years ago. And also
Well,
with
that's the
regards
thing.
to class, yeah,
Mhm.
I'll just finish the class thing.
Mhm.
It is like, I made a video about it, why libertarian socialism fails. My last video. In the current time, I don't think class actually exists. Like, there's no
Oh, it
concrete
does.
definition of.
It
I
does.
I think it does. Yeah,
Yeah,
there's an upper
but
class, a middle class, and a lower
oh,
class.
okay, true, but if I mean, perhaps for white people there is class, but if you go to university or if you go like on Twitter, people don't put their like class in their Twitter bios. They're like, well, I'm Jewish, I'm bisexual, I'm
Yeah, but
Well,
all this
In
type of
America, like the races are also highly. Sorry to interrupt, but
yeah, hang on. Insofar as the Twitter bios, they show their class signifiers all the time. When they say, "Oh, my pronouns are he, him, and their," or whatever the fuck, right? That's a class signifier. That's signaling to other people that yes, I am a college-educated guy, probably from a liberal arts Eastern school. That's the whole point of all
well.
this bullshit. And when you see that video of that woman riding the bicycle with her little kid in his little bicycle and encouraging the little kid to rip out an American flag from somebody's lawn and throw it on the ground. You guys saw that video? It's been trending the last couple of
I have
days.
not actually.
Well, that video, that's class signifier, because what's happened is that a lot of strivers, the haute bourgeoisie, the people who are like, they are upper middle class, but not quite upper class, and they are striving to be up there. They are now identifying patriotism as lower class.
Well, yeah,
The
I've heard
anti-American
that argument.
upper
Yeah.
class. Yeah.
Um, I mean, perhaps, look, I'm not denying that there are certain like educational, cultural, and wealth differences between people, and we can mold them into different categories. But like, I'm simply saying is that like the social, I guess, constructivistic part of all those identities. I think at this point, class is in the back, and it has been abandoned by leftists. And also this, they, them, he, she, they, like mostly if you go on Twitter, mostly, okay, yes, the upper middle class, the managerial class, the professors, yes, the celebrities, they're doing it, yeah. But who also is doing it is those 15-year-olds, CEO of food jobs, all those kinds of people. They're having their pronouns all over the place, and it just signals that they're just, oh yeah, I'm submitting myself to the leftist culture. I think that's what it shows the most.
But it's because they're submitting themselves to the leftist culture because they recognize that that's what the upper classes are doing right now, and they want
I
to be
agree. Sure, yeah, I agree, yeah.
That's the dominant force in our civilization right now. I
Yeah.
guess like Ubersoy, with what you were saying earlier about well, if it was 50 years ago, the capitalists or the capitalist corporations, they would all be supporting our views. Well, that's the thing.
Yeah.
Capitalism has no loyalty, and
It's
capitalism, I
true.
think, ought to be submitted. I think the economy needs to be under the authority of the people, needs to be subordinated to the needs of the people.
I mean, it kind of is because it's very decentralized. You'd probably argue. I know that you're a socialist, so you'll probably say that, for example, oh yeah, or perhaps you'd bring up Soviet Union. You might not, and say that, oh, the things there are governmental controlled, right? But I would probably like there'll be an argument with regards to economics. I don't want to do this at all, but you can change the culture in such a way that the capital would serve the people, no matter whether it's centralized, whether it's decentralized. As far as I'm concerned, liberalism is pretty decentralized at this point, yet it subordinates everyone to do what it wants the most, right? So you don't necessarily need like an open authority like was the Soviet Union, where everything is centralized and you know who is in power perfectly well. When it's decentralized, when the authority is subversive, as far as I'm concerned, and we're controlling the means of culture production, then that's the best ticket. And
Well, okay, let's hold off on this for a little bit because we're getting a little bit on the brambles. And I want to bring in Wheat Waffles because poor Wheat Waffles, who is just not interested in politics at all, has been patiently waiting. And for those of you who don't know, I got interested in Wheat Waffles a few weeks ago, and I started watching some of his videos, and they were great. But I really disagreed with a lot of his points. And because of that, I did some answer videos. And the reason I was very intrigued by Wheat Waffles is precisely because I disagreed with him. Because my thinking is that whenever you come across somebody that you disagree with, that's a good thing because it can help you either hone more carefully what you actually think or rediscover why you believe in certain things. And so my disagreeing with Wheat Waffles was, from my point of view, a benefit to me. Hearing somebody who parrots everything I say is just a complete waste of time. And so Wheat Waffles, for the audience, why don't you go into a little bit your channel and what it's about? Because, I did 3 videos about you, motherfucker. So the least you could do is tell us what you think.
Yeah, first I'll just elaborate a bit more on your point. In fact, even on my own channel, I've got a few pieces of criticism saying that oh, why are you going onto these red pill streams who disagree with your beliefs? But in all honesty, I think that is the best way to, reach an endpoint for any sort of discussion. Because it's no good just being in an echo chamber where you're constantly being fed the same ideas and beliefs every single time, and that applies to any topic, whether it's politics like you guys were talking about, or red pill, black pill, blue pill, whatever, any topic it applies to. So my channel mainly specializes in black pill content, and I think that you had a few disagreements on some of the ideas that I was saying in my videos. So I'm more under the impression that your looks is like the biggest determinant of a man's dating life, and particularly his looks to do with like the things that are genetic, that are inherent to him, that cannot be so easily changed, such as your height, your face, your ethnicity, things like that.
You called it biological determinism. Am I correct?
Biological determinism, genetic determinism, like any of those terms, like fit.
Okay. So you're thinking that you got the looks that you get, and you can't obviously improve your looks. I mean, you can't. If you're born, say, 5'2", there's no way that you're gonna grow yourself into 6'3". So you're kind of like fucked. That's essentially your idea. Is that?
Yeah. If you wanted to sum it up in like as little words as possible, that is basically the idea that I'm promoting. Yeah.
Okay. Now, my critique of you, before we interacted, I had no idea how old you were, but based on just the tone of your voice, because you don't show your face on your videos, I guess that you are between 18 and 23 tops, and you're actually 20 years old, I believe.
Yeah, 20 years old.
Yeah, and so my objection was that at that age, i.e., 18 to 23. Girls are interested in looks exclusively, and quite frankly, it is a detriment to guys who are of that age, who are good looking, to show that they have any kind of brains, because the girls of that age, late teenagers, very, very early 20-year-olds, they're all about looks, and they can't handle a guy that has any kind of deep thoughts, not at least romantically. But that changes fairly radically and fairly soon. A girl like roughly at the age of 20, between 20 and 24 at the latest, all of a sudden she starts to realize that pretty boy is not what she wants. And I was critiquing you and saying basically that your perspective is accurate for your age, but lacking a greater vista, a wider appreciation of reality because of your age. You don't realize that in just a few more years, shit is going to get a whole lot different insofar as your situation. Do you agree with what I said, or disagree?
I think there is some truth to like the thing that you just said. So obviously, I do think that women who are younger place a much greater emphasis on looks compared to other factors, and that might slightly diminish as a woman ages. However, I believe throughout a woman's life, still, by and large, looks is going to be the number one determinant. If a woman is 20, 30, 35, or even older than that, she's going to prioritize looks. So maybe if a woman is 20 years old, looks is going to be like 90%. But then once she reaches 30 years old, it might go down to 80%. But I think in your video, you was portraying that when a woman is 20 years old, she might have looks at 90%. But oh no, as soon as she reaches 30, oh no, then it's about confidence and your intelligence, and that's the 90%.
Well, no, one of the videos was that confidence is not all. A lot of red pillers say that confidence is the most important, but it's more sophisticated than that. It's not merely confidence. But we'll get to that in just a moment. I disagree that women view only looks as the most important thing. The other thing that you disregarded completely, I've noticed, is that social position. See, a very good-looking guy who is not well positioned socially in the clique of the girl, whichever girl we're talking about, he's not going to have the success that a substantially less attractive guy would have if he is well positioned socially.
See, I think this is like, if we look at the big picture, I think this is where the issue lies, because I can see that having some truth to it for when a woman is like 30 years old. Like, they're mainly going to be looking for somebody who's like potentially of higher power, in high wealth, high paying job. Like, they're looking for the beta sort of provider, to raise their child. But for a woman in her 20s or in her high teens, so the reality that I'm experiencing, I've seen that your position, like your social status, it amounts to like very, very little in terms of your dating success. Like, it's just,
Okay,
I'll just provide one really quick example. So when I was in school, like, everyone had, like, even the chads like had jobs at McDonald's or, really poor, low status jobs. Women didn't care about that. They only care about looks at this age.
Can I respond to that?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm basically of the same opinion as Coach Red Pill. let me try and see if I could convince you.
Okay, wait.
Uh,
Sorry, how old are you, by the way?
I'm 21 and a half.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So I'm very similar to wheat waffles. I've also looked at the quote unquote scientific black pill and all those studies. I didn't really experience any, I guess, of those personal details, but that aside, the main point is that you're certainly right that young men these days have little chances in dating, particularly if they are like they have a bad face, or they're not masculine enough, their height is small, all this kind of stuff. You're absolutely right. The main thing is that women's and men's biology of attraction is fundamentally different. Women, they are they're hypergamous, right? So they're looking for a mate of status, and you might be right and say that in the current time, in the when you're 18, when you're 16, you're not really looking to that. But a lot of women, they're looking at producing children, they're looking at long-term goals, and their biology is essentially paved that way. If you read like one or two books on evolutionary psychology and sex differences. So what I'm saying is that when you're like 25, when you're 30, and you have a relative status, like you're better than 25% of people, you're going to have a crowd of women following you. Even if you are a blogger such as yourself, you have over 5,000 subscribers, right? So like women are going to follow you because you are of a social status. And social status, by the way, orgasm tends to correlate strongly with social status. So the higher social status a male is, that's in the scientific black pill of even the incels admit it, for God's sake.
One of the things I do know is the following. Number one, that there is always going to be a curve insofar as what women find attractive, irrespective of if it's just looks or social status or whatever. But there's always going to be a curve, and there's always going to be a certain percentage of men that will never find sexual success. And that's kind of like inevitable. And the Pareto distribution, insofar as women are concerned, is reversed in the sense that 80% of women will find somebody. And only the very bottom 20% won't. Whereas with men, unfortunately, with the deregulated sexual marketplace that we're living in today, it does seem that only the top 20% of men consistently get women. And the bottom 80% of men have to struggle mightily. And I would argue of that 80%, the bottom half of those probably never find sexual success, or very sporadically and grudgingly, and which is unfortunate, but that's the reality. And it's always been the reality. But my argument is that if you are not a particularly good-looking man, there are ways by which you can improve the odds of your sexual success. You're saying, Wheat Waffles, if I understand you correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong, you're saying that your looks are it, and you're born with your looks, and there's nothing you can do, and you're fucked. And my thinking is, your looks are what you get. You can't change your looks, but you can improve your success with women by emphasizing other aspects of your personality that can help you achieve sexual success. That's basically my argument. And did I capture your argument correctly?
No, I don't think you did capture my argument correctly, because you kind of made it seem that the only thing that I think that matters is looks, and that you cannot change your looks any one bit. Like, I've never denied the fact that you can change your looks or change your position or affect other factors such as your personality or your status in life. Obviously, these things are things that you are able to improve on.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we disagree on the extent. I don't think that it is possible to change all of these other plastic things to the extent that you are claiming.
Why not?
Well, because if you're like the main determinants of your looks, like this is the way I put it. You mentioned the Pareto principle. I believe that 80% of your looks is determined by the things that you cannot change. So this is something like being short, being ugly, being bald, like having small inches, if you know what I mean, being old or being ethnic. These are all things that you cannot change. Like, this is the 80%. Meanwhile, the other 20%, like something like getting a haircut, Like, what do you think a woman's going to value more? Somebody with a nice haircut, or somebody who's 5'2" with a nice haircut, or somebody who's like got a really rough haircut who's 6'3"?
Yeah, but you're positing
Like,
a guy who's
I shouldn't have to spell it out
5'2".
like this. No, but I
Like,
shouldn't have to spell it out like this.
Actually,
But clearly,
no,
the things that
because
matter more.
your idea there is that, oh, if the guy's 5'2", it doesn't matter how he looks. Yeah, I'm not denying that a guy who's, for all intents and purposes, a midget is going to have a disastrously bad sex life. I'm not denying that, but you are equating. You're saying that from what I'm hearing is that no matter what your height is, if it's below the ideal, say 5'10" and above, then no matter what amount of marginal improvement you apply to yourself, you will never have any sexual success. And I disagree.
I didn't say that. Again, you're missing my point. I'm saying that you can improve in certain aspects. However, as unfortunate as it is, the things that carry the most amount of weight is your genetics, the things that you cannot change, such as the things I just mentioned: your height, your face, your ethnicity, and so on.
Well, and it's not a binary thing, is it? You know, like you're
It's not a
arguing
binary
that
thing. I
it's
never said it
much,
was.
much more difficult to do these things. You're not arguing that, like, if you're under 5'10", then you're like no pussy for life over here, you know? And I feel like we've
Guys,
all
do you want to
heard this
mispronounce
before.
do you want to miscategorize my beliefs anymore? So, like,
No,
I've
no,
had to
no,
recorrect like
no,
3 times in the last 2 minutes now.
It-
It's getting a joke. You keep miscategorizing my beliefs. I'll repeat one more time because you're
I was
clearly
on
not
your
getting it.
side, bro.
I'm saying that, like, you're able to improve your looks in certain aspects. However, as unfortunate as it is, the things that carry most amount of weight is the things that you cannot change. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I was agreeing with you.
Can I interject without misrepresenting your beliefs one more time? So, again, I'm willing to concede that to you because, of course, those things are important, especially when we're talking about sexual stuff. But look, it is if you are like a male of 5'6" or something, the things that you can do is your bio. You can improve your bio, like graduate something. You can get like a degree, you can get a respectful social position, and those things, they would overshadow the looks, because women ultimately, they look for long-term partnerships more than men do. Men look for short-term most of the time. So it won't really matter that much in the long run. That's what I'm saying. So when you're 30, if you like young girls when they're like 20 or something, then you're going to have a lot of them if you have a good social standing. So what do you think about that?
So the problem I have with social standing and status and money and the rest of this is that it has absolutely nothing to do with your genetics, because the thing is, the way like the political system is
Well,
set up
it
now.
tends to correlate with your genetics, by the way. Yeah.
Well, no. Hang on a second. Let's give a hypothetical example, which is actually pretty good. When I was growing up, there was this guy I knew, a guy called Claudio Lavarca. He was a good friend of mine, and he was sexually unsuccessful. Let's put it mildly, but he got really good at guitar, and he wound up in a band, a high school band, and he'd play high school gigs and shit like that. And after he got good at playing guitar, he got all the pussy he'd ever want, and he was not attractive, and he was not he didn't have a big personality or anything like that, but he was considered cool because he played guitar really well. This was in the 80s when playing guitar actually mattered. Okay. And his social standing dramatically rose because of his guitar playing ability. And now, how does that
Right.
square?
Okay, so that was in the 80s. So we're now living in the year 2021, and I've made this point several times in my videos that like we're now living in the online age, and we've seen the graph hundreds of times showing that the spike in online dating, like it now makes up the majority of relationships forming in 2021.
Yes.
It wasn't like that 40 years ago. Like this is the
what
age
about
of
now?
Tinder
What about
and Instagram.
now? What about now? Somebody who has, say, a million Instagram followers for whatever the fucking reason, or some fat asshole like me who's got 250,000 YouTube followers. I have social standing. Just saying that automatically, even people have never even heard of me say, "Oh wow, that's really impressive," and they look at me different. Automatically, social standing rises. and people's appreciation of me rises, of all sexes and ages, by the way. And so how does that square with what you're saying?
So this is the problem. I'll go back to my point I raised earlier, that all of these things, such as your wealth and your social status, they don't amount to your genetics. And the way our political system is set up now is that women can filter out men, like afterwards, like the beta providers, to do the beta boxing part of raising a child, but then they can take a man's superior genetics, a Chad's genetics. Like I'm not making this up, guys. The data speaks for itself. The rates of single motherhood has gone up from 18% 70 years ago, and it's now standing at over 50%. So like this is the norm. Like you don't need to. You don't even need the data. Like if you go onto some online dating app such as Tinder or
50% single motherhood, that's too much, I think.
Also, when you take into consideration online dating, there's only a certain amount of people that are going to online dating, and they're always looking for a specific thing. Like
that's the majority now.
The pool, but the pool that's in Tinder is going to be different from the pool in eHarmony, for example. So like in Tinder, you're always going to have people looking for flings, and this is the same for Bumble. This is the same for Hinge. But for like eHarmony or Match.com, like both those places that require paid memberships, you get a different type of people who have a higher success rate at getting long-term relationships.
Okay, so do you have a piece of data to support what you're saying?
No.
Well,
the data I have at hand,
is the argument then like, they'll get desperate enough eventually, and let's be real, like even 20-year-olds are looking for guys of high status or high wealth, right? But they're thinking of, Mr. Grey from 50 Shades of Grey, they're looking for a handsome doctor, right? They're not looking for, El Goblino, the doctor, right? and to say that like, they'll get desperate enough to date me eventually. That's actually a great social status right there. Eventually she'll stop caring about me, my personality, and my looks, and she'll just date me so that she can.
As long as you're not El Goblino, you should be fine. I don't think like more than 1% of our population looks like El Goblino. Maybe Wash as well. Yeah.
But they're willing to say that I can't get any better. I can't get a handsome doctor. So I'll just settle for Mr. Beta Provider, who's going to pay for my kids. And whenever I'm lucky, I'll fuck Chad on the side if he'll let me,
Okay, sure, there are, those sort of behaviors. Like, I think your view of women, like, it's very cynical. I don't think you look at like taking into account everything, like as I mentioned, and I want to hear a response. It's the third time I'm saying this. The dating life of men who are over 30 is so much better. Like it's biased in favor of men. Like women who is 30, she's done. Like there's, sure, she could strike something, I guess, but like men are not going for it.
No, that's completely wrong, because people have done Tinder experiments. Wrong. People have done Tinder experiments of women who are like in their 60s and even 70s, and they've still got flooded with matches and like. So what you're saying there is complete rubbish.
Okay, look, men will fucking catch it, dude. Like it doesn't matter. Men will.
Talking about Tinder.
You have to look about Tinder is not a good representation of the population because it's skewed by men.
Not when over,
like 70%,
over 50% of relationships in 2021 are now formed through online dating apps.
But
how is it a small representation?
People are there and desperate men are there.
Or are you saying that
you have to look at the general population, the actual sample?
Then that would be something, but it's not 50% are matching up on Tinder. Come on.
I said that over 50% of relationships in 2021 are formed online.
Yes, what percent?
How can you just
it's not an accurate sample.
How is that not an accurate sample?
So what happens?
Okay, it's mostly young people and desperate men who are there.
Yeah, that's being dishonest with the data. Come on.
What's being dishonest with the data? What is?
You're confusing people who use Tinder for a hookup and saying that kind of behavior is the same as all of the 50% who meet their significant other online. Not all people who meet online get through Tinder. In fact, it would be a fraction of the people who meet online meet through Tinder.
So how else would they be meeting then?
Well, there are lots of other dating apps.
Yes,
There's
they're using dating apps in
Right.
general, so it's not necessarily just Tinder.
You know,
but
people also
over
use
half of it-
Instagram and Facebook to date.
Not
Yeah, so
to
how does-
mention Discord.
So what's the point?
because
So
it
the
prioritizes a certain kind of attractiveness, and people on Tinder certainly respond much more to looks. But I'd be interested to know how many long-term relationships were started on Tinder of that online group of 50%.
Yeah, I'd say not much.
No, but how would that be any relevance? Like, why does it matter if they're choosing to use Tinder to find a relationship as opposed to Instagram or Hinge?
Because Tinder, the whole point of Tinder is to just find somebody who looks good enough to fuck them. That's the whole point of the app.
Well,
Yes.
Tinder is the world's biggest dating app by far. Like, nothing, the second one and third one don't even come close to it. Like, as soon as you think of a dating app, you think of Tinder. So out of that over 50%, you'd expect a big chunk of it, definitely the majority of that 50%.
But how much?
To be,
You don't have that data now, do you?
well, it's got to be at least over the 25%
I know.
mark,
It's
hasn't
got
it?
at least, no, fuck that. You don't have the data. Because if
So what data
give
do
it
you
to
have
me.
to support
But
it?
you're trying to confuse what works on Tinder with what works on all dating apps.
I think we can all agree that for
online,
any
online.
online dating app, irrespective of what the nature is, looks is going to be at the forefront because these are online pictures that you are seeing.
Well, yeah,
Well,
but
not
of course, because it's the first
necessarily.
thing that people see, for crying out loud.
So
I mean-
right, so the vast majority of these dating apps, irrespective of like just forgetting Tinder for now, work on a matching basis. So you need to swipe. So both people need to swipe on
not all of
somebody's
them.
profile. The
Not all
vast
of them.
majority of ones. Yeah, you might get some occasional ones
Like
on the fringe
eHarmony or
that make-
Match, they
that
don't
make up less-
function on that.
Yeah, that make up less than 5% of the market, but the vast majority work on this swiping basis where you need to swipe on someone's photos, which again goes back to that argument of
The
look.
most popular ones, and those ones are explicitly used for hookup.
I mean, even only OkCupid does the same thing, and we see the same like relationship between looks and dating availability, right? And OkCupid brands itself as find your person. This is clearly a dating app, international dating, not like let's go find someone to fuck.
So, Wurzel, you're on Wheat Waffle's side.
All right. So like you guys can call me cynical as much as you want, right? But I feel like I just live in the world, and I live in a world where my entire life until I was 20, I was like 300 pounds, absolutely goblin status. And then in about a year, I lost a lot of weight and found that underneath all that blubber, I was, somewhat handsome. And I gotta say, the absolute difference between and this isn't about confidence or energies or anything, but the difference of women approaching me and having conversations, it's different. It's from going from a subhuman like sludge pile to going into being an actual human. Okay. And
How
to
old are you, by the way? I
looks is
don't know,
the
actually.
greatest thing. It's kind of insane. When they're thinking about status, they don't want an ugly doctor, as I said earlier. They want a very handsome doctor. And if they are willing to settle for an ugly doctor, then that's still not a great thing. You know what I mean? I think looks
How old
a
are you,
huge
Wurzel?
argument.
Wurzel, how old are you?
I'm 22.
Okay, and when did you have this come to Jesus moment of losing all the fat?
That was when I was probably about 20. I started trying, and then 21 was when I actually started losing a lot of weight.
And why was it that you'd gained so much weight?
Because my parents never told me how broccoli works. I literally thought and this is a huge issue with all of this is a huge issue with just like Western society and like this generation is I feel like one, getting your kid fat isn't viewed as child abuse when it really should be. And two, people are not taught how nutrition works. I was raised literally thinking my entire life that I could eat an entire fucking pizza. I could eat, 20 ice creams, but if I ate a platter of broccoli, it would cancel it all out that day. I have no understanding of calories, of nutrition whatsoever. So yeah, that's why I was fat, and I had to teach myself entirely how nutrition and food operates.
One of the problems I've had is living here in Ukraine, that occasionally I have to go to the West, right? And I go to the UK, I've been to the States a few times, and I'm always shocked by all the fat people. Because here in Ukraine, there aren't any fat people. Once in a while, I'm talking once every month, I'll see somebody who's extremely overweight. But they're like like, holy shit, there's a fat person, and at least one fat person. Okay, go to the States, and they're all fat, or they all have this layer of blubber that like that makes their skin soft, that makes their faces like nice and round, like moon faced. And the weird thing I find is that you look at those man on the street kind of films from the 1980s and 70s and 60s and 50s and before. People were thin. You look at the people walking around in a city or whatever, and they looked healthy. And here in Ukraine, people look healthy. They look thin. They look in shape. Okay, and so that's the thing that I'm constantly shocked by. That blubber in the West. I don't quite get it, and I don't quite understand why people are not making more of a to-do about it.
In some places in the United States, I think that if you're just skinny, right, that already increases your dating chances a lot, just because you're not fat compared to everyone else. But like in my experience, like what was the game changer for me and what caused me to get a lot of girlfriends and get laid was learning how to talk with women and stop being an awkward, nerd type. I'm still a nerd, but yeah, but I know how to talk to women, and I know how to make them feel good, and that's usually why it works.
Yeah, I don't think it's confidence, right? I think everyone always says confidence, and obviously confidence is part of it, but it's like energy, it's an energy that you need to have about yourself. And it's more than just confidence. You need to be the guy who goes into a relationship not like begging for a scrounge of pussy. Like,
Yes.
Imagine if you went into a job opportunity being like, please give me this job. I really need it. I'm so underqualified, but if you would just give it to me, and I'd be so lucky. I'd be so happy if you'd give me the, or you walked into a job going, I know that I could get a job anywhere else in this city. I choose your job. I want this job. And you better believe that I'm going to get it. It's completely different to be scrounging and begging, or just being like assured of yourself and your own like worth. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I totally agree. Like just being able to have normal conversations with women, I think, is a huge thing. And just
my experience with women, I started getting good with them when I was 18, when I went to college in Chile, and it was the reason I flunked out of university in Chile twice, because I discovered the secret to getting pussy. And once I discovered that, I was like a monkey with an electrode, just hitting that button over and over again. And the secret was really simple. It was I realized that if I made them laugh, they would find me attractive and want to be with me. And from there, I extrapolated over a number of years that it wasn't merely being funny. It was making them feel positive emotions. And once I made them feel positive emotions, once I basically got them addicted to being around me, because I was the provider of positive emotions, not necessarily laughs, but also confidence, also security as to where we were going and whatnot. Once I got them addicted to that feeling that I could provide for them, they wanted more. And so I realized that the smart thing was to always give them a blast of this positive emotion and then withdraw and walk away and get them chasing me. And that's how I started getting good with girls.
Coach, while you're on the topic, are you just free to explain the concept of friend zoning?
I beg your pardon?
Friend zoning. So friend zoning.
Yeah, friend zoning. What about it?
Yeah. So just give like your quick take on it. So what do you think friend zoning is? Why do people get friend zoned? What happens? Like why does it happen?
Oh, because there isn't the guy fails to make it clear that he has a romantic interest, and fails to make it clear that he's willing to walk away if he doesn't get it.
Okay, so I'll explain like a really quick story that like everyone can relate to this. So guy likes girl. Guy is really kind to girl. Guy makes girl laugh. Girl really likes guy and thinks that he's really funny and a really entertaining person.
There's a mistake.
Now,
there's a mistake.
Guy asks girl to be his girlfriend. Guy gets rejected.
Yeah.
So what was the issue? So if what you were saying is true, that he's causing these positive emotions, he's making her laugh, where did he go wrong along those lines?
Because he didn't make it clear from the get-go that he could walk away.
Well, so you're saying that it would have made a difference if he just if he said in the first 5 seconds, oh, I might not be here tomorrow, would that have made all the difference?
It's not saying it, it's making it clear. There's always
how can you make that clear?
By making it clear that you can walk away, that you can just turn away. I said it in the video that I made about your content. You didn't watch it. I said,
I did watch your videos,
you,
yeah.
you give them a love bomb and then just turn and walk away. They always go after you. They always wind up chasing you.
Well, I think most people in the live chat will be able to speak from experience. So that's like the complete
Well,
opposite of what happens a lot of the
sorry.
time. Like, girls will
A guy who's being
if you're an
clown for a
unattractive
girl.
man, if you're an
Well, I'm
unattractive
telling you,
man and you ignore the
you don't
girl,
want to
then
hear
she's
the
just going to leave
answer
you.
because it doesn't conform to your worldview. I mean, Wheat Waffles, you're a smart guy, but you're failing to look at a broader reality that doesn't conform to your preconceived notion. And I'm telling you, I'm giving you an answer to that, to how to avoid the friend zone issue, which seems to have befallen you a number of times. And I'm telling you, but you don't like the answer. Dude, I'm telling you, the reason that it happens is because were not ruthless enough to make it clear that you were willing to walk away.
It's interesting. It's interesting because for a very long time, for at least 2 years, I followed a lot of this red pill content, telling you that you shouldn't take dating too seriously, you shouldn't pedestalize women, and you should be prepared to walk away, like when it doesn't seem fit, and then she will end up chasing you. Well, for the vast majority of cases, when I've done that, what happens? Well, 1 day turns into 2 days, 2 days turns into a week, and a girl just will not message you back. And in fact, it's the only times that it has worked, and ignoring a woman has led her to turn around and come chase back after you, is when she had that initial attraction with you in the first place.
Well, why are you waiting for like it to happen? Like, I mean, why don't you just like
initiate it?
Don't put so much like stock in it. Like, if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out.
I'd like to add some of the things like from my own personal experiences. There are sometimes like events where you have to friend zone people yourself, right? Like if you don't like the girl enough, you can just be friends with her, right? Like I don't think you necessarily have to sleep with her. Like what's wrong with just being friends?
No,
I think a lot of the issue.
No, I'm highlighting the point that most men struggle today in a respect that they want something more than just friends in a relationship with a woman. However, the woman is not willing to accept anything more than just friends.
Okay, then just follow Coach Redpill's advice.
I think a lot of the issue is that like we're like we have different perspectives on like who's doing this, right? Like, I was on RNK for a long time, my whole like fucking high school career, right? And the issue is that like we're not talking about 4 or 5s, right? And if you're funny, maybe you can add like 2 or 3 points of attractiveness, go up to like a 6 or a 7 out of 5 or out of 10, right? But if you're a 0 out of 10, or if you're like a 1 out of 10 and you add a 2 or 3 by being funny or by being confident or doing whatever it is to like make yourself positive, you're still like a 4 out of 10. You know what I mean? Like if you're like this decrepit, like disgusting individual who repulses women, like it doesn't really matter, dude.
See, the issue is a lot of the time, if you have these positive personality traits as a below average man, as a sub 5 male, then they can actually end up becoming negative. So like, let's say if a below average man, he's 5'6", is confident. If he walks into a bar with his shoulders cocked back, his head held high, and he thinks he's the cat's bollocks, people are going to laugh. They're going to find that embarrassing. They're going to be like,
if you go to a bar, yes, because a bar usually people are going to look up, and yes, it is based on looks, and everybody is inebriated. Yeah, so it's a totally different environment.
As opposed to
say going to church or going to a social club or going to work.
Guys, you heard it here first. Go to church. That's the new place.
Yes, that's right. Go to church.
Yeah, go to church.
Yeah, go to church. Be a normal person, and then talk to people, and eventually you will find someone.
Right. Okay.
I think the better advice.
In fact, it's an interesting point. I know you was partially being sarcastic on the church thing, but I've got the data speaks for itself. Since 1940, where 12% of couples were formed in church, it's now at below 5%. It's now at 4%. And still, the overwhelming way that people are meeting nowadays, I can even show you the chart. Coach, are you able to let me screen share?
Sure,
so I can show the chart.
I don't know if you do it unilaterally or I have to do something.
I think that I can screen share to show the chart because this will be like very useful. Window. There we go.
Okay, well, while we have this dead air here,
No, I've got it. I've got it. Right, it's there.
Okay, go
Is
ahead.
it on?
Sure. No, we're not seeing anything, or at least I'm not seeing anything here.
I'm not seeing anything either.
Same.
I think you might need to make my screen to the main one. Oh wait, no, you need to add my screen to the live stream.
Oh, okay, there it is. There it is. Okay, and
Yeah, there you go.
there we go.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
If I
You all
enlarge
can
that,
see
is
it.
that like enlarged now?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
How
So,
heterosexual have met? Data from 2009 to 2017.
yeah, so I believe it was Ubersoy made the point that most that you shouldn't look for these other avenues of approaching women, such as
No. I was simply saying that after when you're 30 and you're a male, you have like you're in a better position, especially if you have some sort of a social standing, because usually women of your equivalent would have a worse social standing, and women who are 20, they would look for men who are older and who are more experienced. That's what I was saying.
Well, sorry, I
Not
wasn't.
that.
I wasn't
Yeah.
referring to you. Then I was referring to the person who spoke last. So he
censored
said that.
and
That was
on.
me.
Censored and on.
Oh yeah, okay, censored and on. So he said that you shouldn't look at things like going to a bar or going to online dating apps to find women. That you should look at other means, such as going to college, church,
Okay, yeah, but
school,
hang on,
work.
hang on.
Well, if we have
parentheses, censored anon lives in a not rural but semi-rural, small townish area where church going is a bigger social issue,
okay. Well, if
social place.
if we look at the majority, like the context that the majority of people watching the stream are going to be in, it's going to follow this chart. And if we have a look at the trajectories of each of these data points, we see that there is there's only two things going up. Everything else is on its way down. Online is exploding. That's going up the most. The last data point was taken in roughly 2018, and that's now sitting at like just below 40%. In 2021, especially given the coronavirus outbreak, it's likely going to be somewhere in the realm up there in about 70%, I would say. That's just a guess. And also, bar and restaurants are also going up. So that's gone from roughly 12% in 1940 to now over 25%. So the vast majority of the way couples are meeting in 2021 is from these two things alone: meeting online in a bar or restaurant. So the thing that you just said about censored anon, about meeting through other avenues, that is massively on the decline.
Okay, that doesn't mean that it's not possible. And I'd also like to add that, look, when it comes to like the fact that everybody is getting online, that's exploding. That's true. Yeah, but also we have to contextualize this. There are a lot of people consuming pornography, which does tend to taint how a lot of people view dating and relationships. On top of that, like it just seems like everybody's a lot more, I don't know, divided nowadays. But like in these places, like it's still possible to meet a partner here, and I'm not saying that it's going to be easy to find somebody for a long-term relationship, but but it is possible. It's still there.
But the point is, it's getting much harder. Like, it's still there, yes. However, its prevalence is decreasing exponentially, and other means such as online are becoming the norm nowadays. Like, this is the online age. Like, this is the way I always put it: that Tinder. Instagram, it will show you how good looking a girl's boyfriend is, but it certainly won't show you how confident he is. It won't show his personality. It won't show any of those things. And like what's happening nowadays is, especially younger girls, because everyone's on Instagram, they all network through Instagram. One girl will find an attractive boyfriend that they met through Tinder. And then like the other girls are going to latch onto that. They're going to be like, oh, these guys that I know from work, they're not as attractive as these men from Tinder. So I'm just going to jump on that bandwagon and go online as well, because that is where the highest value men are.
Well, I think that no matter what, like you're coming, like if you're focusing entirely on personality and you think I'm just like this slob who can't get women and I need to convince them to like me, you're like selling yourself at that point, and if you're just handsome, you're going in there already like sort of sold halfway to the woman. All you need to do is not put your foot in your mouth and say the N-word. But like it never hurts you to be better looking, you know what I mean? And it's actually like a bonus, and you don't need to sell yourself as hard,
It's
so
certainly not a bonus. No,
thing-
I did agree with a lot of the stuff you just said there, but it's not a bonus. Like, looks is number one nowadays. Everything else is secondary.
Okay, so just because
depends.
it's an exception, right? Right. Looks are exceptional, sure. That doesn't mean it's not possible to find someone. Like it's harder, sure, but a lot of things are harder. So that doesn't mean that you shouldn't try.
But he's saying it's the number one.
I didn't never. Hold on a second. Hold on a
Well,
second.
I think that the part of the objection of people have of what you're talking about, wheat waffles, is that it seems as if you're basically saying, look, if you're not good looking, just roll over and die.
Hold on a second. No.
The impression that
Censored Anon just made the same comment. He said that you should not try it, like if you believe in what I'm saying. No, that is not at all what I'm saying. I'm saying that you should recognize, have a look at the diagnosis first, have a look at the data, recognize that it's getting harder and it's becoming more looks focused, and then look at that and see what you can do to try to alleviate these hardships. So I fully believe in trying to do everything you can in improving your looks, whether it be soft looks maxing, such as things like getting a haircut or growing your beard out to hide like flaws in your jawline, or buying fashionable clothes, all things like that. And or if it's even as far as surgery maxing. So let's say if somebody's hairline is receding.
No, you don't need to do that. You
what
don't
about
need to do that. That's
maxing
ridiculous.
and money maxing?
How about just pursue your own purpose? And if a woman comes along the way, then good enough,
then
right?
based.
Like you don't need to like put all this ridiculous effort into doing this. Like I agree. Like okay, dress well. To put in a certain amount of effort into your appearance. Sure. Like I don't disagree with that at all. But like to say that okay, you need to go as far as like surgery, or like you should go as far as to like buy all these fashionable clothes or do all this. I don't think that there's a huge point to that.
Can I interject, Max, or whatever you say? Look, I think it's an important conversation, but unfortunately, I feel like it basically turned into some sort of where Wheat Waffle was so saying, oh yeah, like looks is important, and everybody else responding basically, almost implying that. Just be confident, just do yourself, that's what I'm feeling. Look, his points, that I do disagree with the way he interprets it. I don't think an exaggeration from Tinder with the young demographic could be applied to like society as a whole. If you look at surveys, I know you would probably disagree and say that women lie, but looks, they are very important, but status usually outweighs it. And also, like, we're at the same point again. There are, it's different, but when it comes to the age group. So as I said again, and that's the fourth or fifth time I lost count, but if you have a social status, as long as you don't look as Vasha's girlfriend, right? As long as you have some money, you're going to be very fine after 30. And a lot of women
that's the key point. I'll just interrupt there. So that's the key point. You said over 30. I'll bring up another data point.
Okay.
Oh, please tell me I've got it on here. No, I don't. But anyway, Oh, yeah, I do. Oh,
well, can you just send it in the general chats, like in the?
No. I'll put it up. Do you have it there?
Waffle.
Well, it's gone now. I don't see it. You got to put it back up.
Yeah. No, I don't have it with me. I forgot to put it on. But it basically it ties back to the video that Coach Red Pill posted on his first one of his first part of the series, and he basically said that when women age, they care more about other things, such as that you just mentioned, like your money and your status. However, when they're in their best years, when they're in their early 20s and high teens, then they care more about their looks. So pretty much, like if I had to sum it up in a sentence,
that's not accurate.
If I had to sum it up in a sentence,
not accurate. Wheat waffles. That's flat out not accurate. I can tell you that right off the bat from firsthand experience. That's simply not accurate. See?
So feel free to clarify.
Guy's good looks can get him in the door with a 21-year-old girl, but he's got to have other stuff, especially the higher status the girl, the better looking the girl. the guy's good looks are not going to be enough. He's got to have other shit, and
Right.
she will easily and happily surrender the good looks for the other status, for the high status guys.
Right, have you still got me on screen share?
Man, come on.
Have you still got me on screen share?
Can I just also mention something
Yeah,
like
sure.
real quickly?
You have to put it up. You have to put it
Yeah,
up.
I've put it up. Okay, so
No, it's
Coach,
up there.
feel free
I'm
to explain this.
I'm
Well,
looking,
it's
but
not
you haven't put it up
there.
Man. I'm just
Yeah.
saying.
I'll just
Okay,
say
yeah.
real quickly why
Sorry, yeah.
you configure this is that looks are very important for people who are looking into short-term relationship. If you wish to have a long-term relationship, and if you are a woman, social standing matters more.
Why does it need to be one or the other? You know, like can we not just say that you should try as hard as you
Why
can
does
to
it
improve how
like
you
it's
look?
simply
The
one
You're
example of
looking
a
fashionable by
conversation?
lifting heavy weights. You should look as well as you can, right? Lift heavy things. And you should also be ambitious, try to achieve high social status. And then the best position you can be in is when you have both, and then you can take in these women, right? And then you can determine whether or not you want to be with them rather than scrounging for like a
I agree with
Pretty much
that.
agree. I completely agree with that. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
Look,
I've not denied that you should do everything in your ability to
It's
try
that
to
you
improve your
sound like
looks.
you are denying it.
How do I
It
sound
do-
like I've
it
denied that?
does-
I've actually
you're just
explicitly
looking
said.
about
You're
I've
looks.
explicitly
That's
you're
it.
implying that. You're
No, but I've
implying.
explicitly
Agree.
said about 10 minutes ago that you should do everything to improve your looks. I even listed things that you can do to improve your looks, such as going
One
to
of
the
those
gym and
things-
getting a haircut.
And one
And
of
I
those
also
things was
enlisted-
surgery.
Yes, and one of those. Yeah, so if you're balding and that you found that your dating life has now dried up significantly because of that, then I have no issue with somebody getting surgery in order to improve their hairline. Same goes if somebody has an accident and like they bodge their nose up and now it becomes incredibly like misshapen and it significantly decreases their looks. I have no issue with somebody getting a rhinoplasty in order to fix that. Like, what's your objection there, or do you think that's acceptable too?
Getting a rhinoplasty.
Rhinoplasty,
Yes.
you got your nose smashed in. Sure, I don't have a problem with that. Like
There's
getting
nothing-
like cheek implants or chin implants or some shit like that. No, I would disagree.
So how come you first raised eyebrows when I brought up the idea of surgery?
You're doing this rhetorical move, and you've done it several times, of like conflating extremes with what is more moderate and acceptable. You're saying that, oh, you're against rhinoplasty after you've suffered some injury where your nose got squashed to your face. No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that, some sort of like chin implants or some shit like that, I'd object to that. But a rhinoplasty after an accident where you got your nose smashed in is no problem. But you're conflating those two in order to win the rhetorical point. And
so why is it an issue to get filler in your cheeks? So why is it an issue to get filler in your cheeks or jawline?
See, there's a difference between gray and white, okay? But to say that, it's all on the same sliding scale means that they're the same, that's a disingenuous argument. And I think that in my own case, I can say that it's a little irritating when you keep pulling this move. You're not allowing for the fact that there are gradations.
Okay, fair enough. So would you care to explain then why you think it's an issue for somebody to get cheek filler or jaw filler, but not a rhinoplasty? Would you feel free to like explain the difference between the two?
Sure, because a rhinoplasty after a traumatic accident would basically be to restore the way your face looked before the traumatic accident. But putting chin implants or cheekbone implants or whatever the fuck is a way to change the looks that you originally had in hopes that this will improve your sexual success. That's the difference between the two.
Okay, how about a hair transplant? Is that acceptable after balding or not?
No, I personally haven't done it, even though I have the means to do it, and I'm losing my hair, and I don't really care about it.
So would you deem that acceptable for a man to do?
I think it's a waste of time, but sure, go ahead.
So why is it acceptable for him to get a hair transplant and not cheek filler?
There's a difference in
Because
degree
you're
there.
You're changing the way that when you have lost hair, it's the same issue as after having an accident where you got your nose smashed in. You're trying to recapture the former aesthetic that you had, but putting implants is not the same.
I don't think there's really much to be said about the differences here. Like, you're doing something, you're paying a lot of money
There's a
for
huge difference in
for
degree.
a surgeon to make, pretty much in black and white terms, make you more
So you
attractive.
don't like the fact that I objected to your argument, and so you're trying to
No, but
go
it's
in
making right. So we live like.
come on, man.
Right, no, but what's your issue with that? Like, fair enough if you don't want to do it yourself, but if somebody else, like,
I
has the
don't
money,
have it.
they want to get this surgery and they want to go through with it, then why would you have an objective?
It reeks of desperation. Let's put it like that.
No. Yeah, it reeks of desperation, number one. But also, I know for a fact that those kinds of implants, they don't work. Everybody who's ever gotten any kind of implant of any sort, it always looks like they got an implant. It always looks like they've had work done.
Okay,
Even on a subconscious level, you're like, what the fuck happened to their face? But you know something happened to their face. Look at Robert Redford, for instance. Now, there's a guy who looked really good. And then, like, in the 90s or something, he had some eye operation. And it's like, what the fuck happened to him? And well, you know, before my time, before your time, I suppose. But there are lots of people who, you know, famous people, celebrities, whatnot, who have had plastic surgery, and it's been a complete fucking disaster. And also, what's from going back to the issue of plastic surgery, there are a lot of people, famously Jennifer Grey, whose looks were not perfect. And in that imperfection, they were unique and interesting and more attractive. And they fixed their looks by way of plastic surgery. And they lost those imperfections and therefore their uniqueness. And people no longer found them as attractive as they used to find them.
Okay, yeah, there could be truth to that argument. However, like, if it's somebody's choice, free choice to make this decision of getting plastic surgery, then
I'm not saying
I don't see why there would be an objection there. Okay, so how do you feel about like female a woman getting breast implants? Is that disingenuous?
I would not be with a girl who wants to get breast implants. What do you want me to say? If she wants to do it, fine. But I don't think that they look better.
Then I don't really see what the issue is.
I think that's really telling of the kind of personality that she has, and I probably wouldn't date her.
Yes.
I mean, because there's such a thing as good women and bad women and bad men and good men. Yeah, a lot of the good women out there don't really would do this kind of thing.
Yeah. It just shows that they're low in intelligence. They're trying to, like, the only thing they're good at basically is what they're saying is sex and, you know, appealing to men and etc. Like, I wouldn't date this kind of woman. She's probably also going to be like polyamorous, or like she's going to cheat, you know, if
She's
doesn't
obsessed
like
with being young.
Yeah. I mean, like, it's just a failure. Like, just don't date her, right? Like, you know, she does her thing, and she makes her also like she divides her tongue in two, or, you know, do some other sort of weird operation. Just don't date her.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, but I will just highlight from an objective standpoint that, as a whole, a woman getting breast implants is a positive. Like, there were studies done on this that they had a female waitress. But
here's the issue, Weed Waffles. I am a high status guy. I can pick and choose who I'm with. I wouldn't be with a girl who's had breast implants because they look cheap and pathetic. Simple as that.
Yeah, fair enough. Like, that's your subjective opinion, but from an objective opinion, as a whole,
and it's an objective opinion, most high status guys would not go for a balloon titted, you know, thought. Of course.
So do you have a statistic to go with that?
Oh yeah, okay. It's just experience.
Do you have a study? Do you have a study on that? Do you have a study?
Yes, I do.
I mean, yeah, I don't think
that
we need data on everything.
You know?
I don't think we need data on everything.
Well, I was just about to raise the study that like, they did an experiment where women like they took a female waitress and they calculated how many tips she got, and after she like had padding in her bra, then she actually had sort of significant increase in the number of tips. I can't remember the exact percentage.
It was
probably around because people are horny. Or 50%. People are giving her more money.
Yeah. So as a whole, like, yeah, you might get some guys who think, oh no, she's got breast implants, like, I'm not going to tip her as much. Like, it's happening subconsciously, but that's what people might assume. But
well,
as
I mean,
a whole,
I'm sure
the
if a girl
majority
has
of men,
bigger tits, then yeah, I might give her a bigger tip. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe it's because maybe depending on how horny I am that day. Maybe there are a lot of horny bastard guys that when they see a hot girl at a restaurant, they'll give her more money. But that doesn't necessarily mean that, like, how does that relate to you, like, pursuing a long-term relationship? I don't think it
it's
really
giving her
does.
more attraction. It's giving her like an increase.
Yeah,
in
it's
SMV.
it's called
So-
like free. It's called free attraction from people being horny.
So no, but if coach is saying that this girl getting breast implants is like causing a detriment to her, and he would be like turned
A detriment
off
for
by that.
good guys.
However, the data
Yes.
shows that the majority of men are actually view that as a positive.
Yes, but the majority of men are not high status by definition.
No,
I
but
don't
how
need
can you
anybody to
how
prove
can you
that.
say that high status men? How can you say that high status men will view it as a negative, but low status men will view it as a positive?
Because all of
How
my
can you
life,
say that?
I've been in areas with other high status men, and we all agree when we talk casually about such things that breast implants are shit. They look fake and they feel like garbage. So, I know that from my own experience.
Also,
And it's
typically,
enough experience that you can't just say, "Oh, it's anecdotal." Okay,
Well, it
fine.
is anecdotal evidence.
Okay, fine. See,
well,
you prove my point.
yeah, typically high status men, they're also high in intelligence, and high in intelligence correlates with a lower, preference for this kind of things anyways. So,
Look, most guys would be very interested in some big-titted heifer, with a lot of makeup. High status guys will run from such a girl because she's just garbage. She's just trash. See?
Yeah,
It's like
well,
because
we
the
can argue on
majority of people
like
want something.
well, we
Doesn't
can
mean
argue
that
on like
it's
what are
something. It's like saying, that high status people don't like to eat at McDonald's and eat a Big Mac and fries. They much prefer to go to Le Cirque or Cipriani or something like that. See, I don't need a study to prove that. Okay?
no, well,
And
you can't
most
say that
people-
you've proven
most
it either.
people-
You can't say that you've
most
proven it
pe-
either.
Most people enjoy McDonald's and go to McDonald's. High status people don't.
I can see what you're saying. Like, we can argue over like what we think our hypotheses would be. However, like, you can't say that you've proven like one case or the other. Like, more research will just have to be done. Like,
Okay,
that's not
so
an issue.
more
So,
research will have to be done to prove that high status people, when given the chance, will prefer to go to a nice restaurant like Cipriani's. Rather than
well, I'm not denying that may be the
Okay.
case. However, you can't make conclusions if you don't have the evidence at hand.
Come
And no
on.
research has been done.
I don't really think
Yeah.
that you need data for everything. Not for something like this.
do you
Well,
have is that so, Jack? Do you have studies for this, right? It's just common sense. I'm
I
sorry.
feel like we're kind of getting like lost in the weeds. of
Yeah,
this.
totally
Right.
lost in the weeds.
We
Yeah.
should probably move
Yeah,
on.
Yeah,
Let's move on. Yeah.
I think we've exhausted this topic.
Yeah.
Uber Soy, why don't you give us a little bit about your channel? Because like I promised to those listening, I promised to each of my participants that I'd give them like undivided room, like a clear runway for them to basically pitch us their channel and tell us why should we subscribe to their channel. So Uber Soy, why should we subscribe to your channel? What good are you? What
Can you
do
just give me
you
2
have?
secs because like, I've got to leave now.
you
Sorry,
gotta-
I've got to run.
oh.
Like, and if you're moving on to something else, and you guys like to talk about politics, then like it's not going to be relevant me being here anyway.
Okay, Wee Waffles, it was a real pleasure to have you on. Thank you so much for joining us. I really very much appreciate it. And I think I speak for everybody else that it's been a real pleasure to have met you. And I hope to see you again soon in another live stream.
Okay,
Can,
thank you
can
very
I
much.
just
Take care.
say, is he here? Can I just say something to Wheat Waffles?
Something nice.
I-
Something nice.
Yeah,
We want to
very,
keep on a positive note.
yeah. I'll just, that's an offer. I would like to debate you on this kind of stuff sometime in August if you're interested.
Yeah, that sounds all right. Yeah.
All
I'd be
right.
happy to do that.
Yeah,
I'm
contact me
always
on
open to
Discord.
debate and
Mhm.
discussion. Yeah.
I'll give each of you your contact information after the stream, and you guys make it happen. I really look forward to it.
Okay, thanks a lot. Yeah. I'll
Thank
try
you.
to contact you if you've got an email address on your YouTube channel or something like that.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'll contact you after the stream. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, guys. I'll see you later.
Take it
care.
easy, Wee Waffles.
Cheers.
Take it easy.
So anyway, like I was saying about Uber Soy, Uber Soy, now is your time. Now is the time for you to pitch us your channel.
Yeah.
Why should we care about you? What are we going to see naked pictures of you?
I don't know. I might open an OnlyFans. Well, that's a joke. Yeah. So why you should pay attention to me? Well, there are a couple of things. first of all, the reason I
No,
opened my
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to put you on the spot. I was just I was just fucking around
oh
with
no 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 no
you.
no
Tell us about
I
your
always
what it's about.
yeah, I always speak like that when I'm excited. So basically, there are a couple of things that I'm doing right now. At this point, I'm responding to Marxists, socialists. I'm attacking them. That's how my channel started, by the way. Might be doing response videos like meme videos. There's a very good series of videos on my channel, basically like, oh, the different endings of the United States, that
How do
sort
you
of
think
stuff.
the
I
U.S. is
love
going
it.
to end? How do you think the U.S. is going
Oh,
to end?
well, there are. I can say like a specific scenario. There are probably like a few different scenarios that would happen over time. But basically, essentially, this social justice warrior bullshit, this whole leftism stuff, it would only accelerate and accelerate and accelerate. One thing I know for certain, this transgender movement would probably receive a huge backlash with this new detransitioner and etc. in like 5 years, especially with women. So that's a good thing. But on the other notes, we're just going to get more woke and more woke, and eventually people like us, we're going to be pushed into the alternative spaces. Yeah, so that's my thoughts. But my main thing about my channel, like probably the core, is that I publish very good original ideas, and eventually by the end of the year, I will start like a new platform, a site where you could. So it's going to be like a database. It's going to be some sort of like a newspaper, and you can.
Hang on a second. I mean, that sounds extremely interesting, but I'm really curious about you going into specifics of how you think
Okay.
America is going to end. Because look, this is I'm totally black-pilled about the future of the U.S. I grew up very patriotic in the United States, and for me, the notion of America was that this is it. This is the pinnacle of Western civilization. And I grew up in California in the 70s, and California in the 70s was fucking a golden land. It really was amazing. And I see it now, how it's decayed. I see Los Angeles, city I grew up in, I know intimately, and it's a fucking disaster. Dude, I see like in places that I used to frequent, where there's, under bridges, there are these homeless people encampments. And I'm like, what the fuck happened here?
Yeah,
It's like the whole fucking place became like fucking, I don't know, some third world shithole. And I've been to third
it
world shithole,
is.
and it's even worse than there. And I'm like, what the fuck happened? And so I've become completely black-pilled.
Uh-huh.
And every year I'm more and more black-pilled. And especially over the last year and a half, I'm like, this shit is going down. And I look at the economy, I look how they're overprinting money. And with all these stupid fucking woke, bullshit programs that are just huge money sucks that add absolutely nothing, it seems like the whole fucking country is going down the tubes. I see also how the United States has gotten involved in all of these stupid foreign adventures that benefit no one except allies in the Middle East, specifically Saudi Arabia and Israel. Both of those countries have gotten a lot of benefit from all of the United States' misadventures in the Middle East. But the United States has lost men and treasure over nothing. It's been a complete disaster. And I'm like, who the fuck is running things in America? And that's why I think that my bottom line feeling is that there is a huge power vacuum in America because the system has become such that only the kind of people who get to positions of leadership are not necessarily the people who are actually good at leadership. In fact, there are conformists and morons, and there's nobody at the helm. And that's why America is going down. And there's no possibility of a strong leader taking over and righting the ship of state so that things are back on point. I mean, that's why I'm so black pill, to tell you the truth.
Well, there is somebody at the helm, those corporate oligarchs we were talking about earlier.
Well, the problem there is that all these corporate oligarchs, they have different objectives and different priorities. And so a lot of these objectives and priorities are contradictory with one another. And therefore, America lurches from one direction to another, almost at random. And that's the problem. I mean, if the oligarchs were unified and were all like going in one direction, well, that'd be something at least. But here you have like, different factions grabbing power for a little bit and steering it one way and then yanking it and steering it another way. And there's no overall clear direction. To give you a specific example, recently, the Biden administration, they decided that they were going to try to make nice with Russia. And so Biden begged and begged and begged to have a meeting with Vladimir Putin. That meeting happened. And then the very next day, they imposed more sanctions on Russia. That's clearly two different factions operating. One faction wanted a meeting with Putin because they want to put the whole Eastern Europe thing on the back burner so they can focus on China. Whereas another group, another faction in the Biden administration wants to attack Russia because they have historic grievances with Russia and they hate Russia, viscerally. They hate it irrationally because of shit that happened 150 years ago. Okay. And so you have these different factions in the American government that on the one hand want to be nice with Russia, on the other hand attack Russia, and that just goes to show you the lack of direction and the randomness of American action, which will ultimately lead to the whole American ship going off a cliff. Sorry for the mixing of metaphors, but I think you all know what I'm talking about. Sorry for ranting.
Yes. No, I totally understand you. If I grew up in America during those 1970s Californian times and seeing what's happening with it now and how the elites are, you can't even predict what Biden is all about, I would probably rant too.
So what do you think?
What do I think about this?
Oh, no, Wurzel.
No, yeah.
Sorry.
Honestly, like maybe I'm cynical, right? But I feel like this is a strategy rather than like incompetence. And I know it's better to always like assume ignorance rather than malice, but like, there was something really, really succinct that was said by one of these Bush admins. And obviously, like I'm right wing, I vote Republican. I'm an America First guy, but I'm an America First guy, And I think that the swamp, as we've started to call it, is right and left, obviously. And Bush is, he's a neocon. He's one of these people too. Yeah. And what one of the Bush admins said is that we are the actors and everyone else is just reactors, right? So while we are acting, everyone else is analyzing our actions. They're breaking it apart, trying to figure out what's happening, trying to pick apart why it doesn't make sense or why it's not good for people. But while they are reacting, we act again, right? And as they act again in some other manner, which however achieves their goals, people begin reacting to that thing. And in the meantime, the first thing gets passed through. Or if they get too much of a, pushback, they'll just draw it back and they'll try again in 5 years, So much of politics these days is bread and circuses. It doesn't mean anything. It's not really for a purpose other than keeping people sort of out of the loop and confused as to what's really going on. But when you look at like these mainstays of what the establishment or what the political elite is pushing, what the subversive element of our government is doing, it's immigration. We need more immigration. It's the LGBT narrative. It's all of this stuff. It's the destruction of religion. It's the focus on secularism, and it's very, very consistent. And I think for the end of essentially making a country of fat, happy, jerked off, well-milked coomers who have very easily been controlled, been fed government propaganda since the day that they're alive, and are completely incapable of seeing what is actually happening, but just barely capable of going to their worker bee jobs every day and building a nice little hive for those on top. I think the corporatists, the oligarchs, they want a globalist world which is ruled from Brussels. They want to essentially allow America to reach its end decay state, because they understand that they can make a lot of money doing it. And I think all of their actions in regards to China show this, that China is the new puppet superpower. But what really is going to be the powerhouse is Brussels, the UN, which China will be, the big dick of. They'll be the superpower, whatever. It doesn't really matter, because at the end of the day, Brussels is just a bunch of more politicians, which they can pick names out of a hat, whoever's willing to go along with their bidding. And that's what they want, man. That's what they want.
I would say it's already happened in a lot of ways.
Yeah,
No?
yeah. I mean, if you look at America, right, who are the politicians who are getting elevated, right? Is it people who have a claim? No, it's all of these people who are indistinguishable from each other. But at the end of the day, they have to go to the people in charge. You know, they have to go to the controllers, the oligarchs, for a blessing to go forward, right? They are being selected, and they are being made by these people. And if ever they are pushing the policies of the oligarchs, and it's a huge scandal and it's a bad thing and everyone hates them, they start hating the politician. They do not hate the oligarch. They don't see the oligarch operating behind the curtain. You know what I mean? So the politician is disgraced. He's discarded. But what are the oligarchs doing? They simply select a new, young, ambitious political figure, right? Who they can fund. They can get him up there, and who will then push more of the policies of the oligarchs, who, as I said before, in some cases just straight up write the bills that they are pushing, you know? And if they get disgraced and they get pushed out, I talked earlier about the Citibank guy, right?
Mhm.
What happened to him, do you think? After he retired in disgrace, he became a lobbyist for a banking firm. And the other guy who pushed it, he became the head of the Michigan Fed. All right, the Federal Reserve for Michigan. Okay, so these guys
Okay, that's
are out
crazy.
there
Yeah.
making $400,000 as a lobbyist after they get disgraced, or they're the head of the Fed pulling in millions and who knows how many, or they just go the Hunter Biden route, you know, and they start selling artwork for $200,000 a pop to anonymous bidders, you know.
Nice work if you can get it. Yeah, look, the issue of like the corruption in the American government, it's just so amusing to me because like they keep saying in the United States that other countries are corrupt, yet the American corruption, insofar as lobbying is concerned, insofar as book deals are concerned, these huge book deals that are given out to politicians when they do quote unquote the right thing, it's just like what the fuck? It's like fucking Argentina. Argentina is famously corrupt, for those of you who don't know. And it's the same kind of corruption that it kind of like follows the letter of the law, but it's all corrupt. You know, the laws are ticked, the boxes of the laws are ticked, but it's fundamentally immoral. It's fundamentally corruption. And people sort of like just accept it. I just find it shocking, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, I mean, you know, like, and that's one of the huge responses to the Hunter Biden stuff. You know, it's like he was out in Ukraine making like $400,000 a year. You know, being like some technician that he wasn't qualified for, like the co-chair of you know, whatever. And then he went to China. He started doing the exact same thing, and
Yeah.
everyone's like, "Hey guys, isn't this just like outright corruption?" Where you know, wasn't the entire Biden family getting paid for all these shell companies that was laundering money
Yeah.
from Ukraine? And they were. And what did the leftists say? Oh, well, they're just family members, man. They're just family members.
And in the Biden laptop, it said that you know there was
Oh,
one
God.
Biden family member, I think it was Hunter, complaining to his cousin or his sister, somebody that you know that everybody had to kick up 10% to the old man. What
Yeah.
the fuck? All of these sinecure positions and 10% went back to the old man. I mean, oh man,
This is the state of disinformation, though, because they're still running with the fact that this is a Russian disinformation campaign. This laptop, like, what the Russians, like, did they, you know, Photoshop Hunter's face onto the face of some dude fucking a bunch of prostitutes too? Why would they do that?
They
You know,
also
The guy
made
is
him say
literally
the N-word.
snorting coke off the ass of a hooker, and nothing happened, man.
Isn't there also like a porn video of him like floating around where he's getting like a foot job or something?
Yeah, yeah, there
What
is.
job you
I've
did it?
seen it. It's not impressive.
Well, also, you should remember,
What? He's got a little pee-pee, or is just not
Yeah.
as
Well, I mean, like it's ugly. I don't know. Like, yeah.
It's not like the nice, cute porn. It's like the, you know, homemade porn.
It's a dirty crack whore, yeah.
Like it's
what
a very
everyone else
amateur.
forgets-
Yeah.
Well, he's literally just like smoking crack in that video. It's like, oh my gosh.
And what everyone forgets about this conversation about the laptop, right, is that one of the guys who was making in the listings 5%, I can't remember his name, he came out and he validified everything that was said in the laptop. He came out and said everything was true. He said, these are legitimate text messages that I received on my phone, by the way. That was me in the conversation with him. I got those. And also he said that the 5% to the big guy, which you were referencing, or the 10%, whatever, that was for Joe Biden. You know, that was for the president. And no one cares, man. No one cares, because that's where they are. They're just these like you know, cattle who are being fed like garbage, and they just believe it because, you know, that's the reality that has been established for them. It's like Yuri Bezmenov said, you know, when people are sufficiently brainwashed, when they are sufficiently demoralized to such this state, you can present them with truth, you can present them with actual facts and just like outright truth, and they will reject it because they're not in the business of propaganda anymore. Really, they're in the business of gaslighting and manipulation. They're in the business of absolutely subverting people's brains and how they think, man.
Hey, let me ask you, you three guys. You guys are in the States. I'm in Eastern Europe. What's the morale in the States? How are people feeling? Because I know Ubersoy, you're in Canada, and I know Canada is fucked.
Oh, I can speak for Canada and the morale. Yeah,
I mean, we'll get to Canada in just a second, but I want to ask you guys, Censored Anon, you know, how is the morale of people in the States nowadays?
I would say overall bad. People notice the things that happen on the television and they just don't care anymore, or they just tune it out. They just try to keep their heads down and focus on whatever they're doing. Like in the place that I work, I work with about like 30 people, and they're pretty much more or less all the same. None of them ever want to talk about politics. If they do want to talk about politics, they're like, yeah, it's a joke. It's completely ridiculous. And they don't care to keep an eye on it at all. But most people are just like content with focusing on like the weekend and then the work week. That's what I've noticed.
Wurzel?
It differs by generation, right? I find that like because I had a huge boomer contingent on TikTok. Actually, you know, you'd think it was Zoomers, but most of my fans are boomers. I feel like,
I mean, boomers like over 60.
like I listen,
motherfucker. If you call me a boomer, I'm gonna go to where you are, lit you on fire, and piss on your ashes, motherfucker. I am a Gen Xer.
Okay, there's a lot of people over 30 who followed me.
Are you as old as my dad?
What?
Are you as old as my dad? My dad's in 40s.
I'm 53. So
oh my gosh, you're older than my dad.
Yeah. Yeah, and fuck you too. No, but seriously, Wurzel, your audience were like over 30, and
a lot of.
Okay, and what was the I'm very interested in this, to tell you the truth. So please tell me about the breakdown by generations, please.
Yeah, for those type of people, it was pretty unanimous in either like CNN bots, right, who are only capable of regurgitating CNN stuff, and we're talking sort of like the older generation is more based in reality, perhaps, than the Zoomer generation, where they're just talking about how things affect them on a day-to-day level, right, and what the TV is telling them. But for the like right-wing guys who are over 30, it's very much the consensus that everyone is thinking this, but they feel like they can't say it, you know? So they'll hear me speaking and, you know, out on my porch, smoking a cigarette, talking, and they'll say, that's exactly what I'm thinking, but you have the balls to say it. You know what I mean? And that's honestly pretty nice. It's kind of sad that people are too scared to say these things, which they used to be considered just like common sense or truth, you know, just how the world is. But the culture is to such a degree where these people feel like they are going to be ostracized. It's the chilling effect. They feel like they can't say it, that they are the only person in the world who is thinking these things, and that everyone else has lost their mind, and it's better to just shut up and let things happen because they don't want to get ostracized. They don't want to be the next person who's out on the streets homeless because they said maybe gay marriage is the best thing in the world, you know? For the younger generations, they are either like absolute hedonist madmen who just have turned off their brain and succumbed to the me need dopamine, me need feel good pleasure thing, you know? And they don't think about it at all. Or on the right wing Zoomers are like they sort of accepted the fact that we need Minecraft solutions to this problem, not political solutions.
Okay.
Accelerationists.
Accelerationists? Okay, yeah. Ubersoy, you were saying?
Well, basically, my opinion is somewhat similar to Wizard Root. You know, I live in southern Ontario. That's basically our Rust Belt, quote unquote. My city is pretty deindustrialized. Some parts of it, and I go to a university, and here. So I mostly interact with young people. I don't have anyone who I'm talking with in my seat who's over 30 years old. So I'll base my experiences, based on people who I see daily. And I'll say it straight away. It's not like it's a lot of them are like immigrants from like the Middle East, from from all over the place, right? So, and they don't really care that much for the Canadian like internal politics. They're just here to like do their job to
Do they
you know
even care about Canada?
no, they don't. I don't think they do. No, I haven't noticed that they care. Like I care about Canada, and I'm an immigrant. Well, I mean, I guess that's a different story. But and the people like let's say the white Canadians that are here, especially if we're talking about white young women, they seem to be bought into that. So like they just repeat all the main talking points, and like Coomerish, they are Coomerish, like people who are now in universities right now, like their IQ is significantly lower than the people who are in the universities like 30 years ago, like 60 years ago. It's basically like a large kindergarten at this point. But I'll say this one final thing. Uh, you have this what's it called? Damn, it went out of my mind. It's
That's
very.
okay. Go ahead.
I'll try to get it back. So basically, like sometimes, like when I'm speaking and my thought just
Why
goes out of the window.
So-
Like I hate it so
so-
much.
Go ahead.
One thing I wanted to say was that I actually work around like the older Hispanic demographic a lot. So like and like people
Oh,
that were-
I remember that. Okay,
yeah.
go ahead.
So
Go
I
ahead.
was so like people who were born in the 1940s, 50s, 60s, and I noticed that all of them really do take seriously what the television says a lot. So they take 100% seriously like the risk of COVID, and always getting their vaccines, and wearing the masks. And also like when they're talking about stuff on television, I remember I was sitting outside with this older Hispanic gentleman, and he seemed like a great guy. He's a nice guy. But like he was telling me, oh, that Trump guy, he's pretty insane. I've never seen somebody so angry in my life. I think that we really need somebody different. And like I was thinking about that, like because I thought at least at the time that it should have been obvious that a lot of people were just kind of like smearing Trump, and a lot of it was exaggerated, and nobody could reasonably believe that kind of thing. But he just kind of bought it wholesale, and that's mostly been my experience with the older demographic, is that they buy what's on the TV a lot.
Yeah.
My own experience has been kind of interesting, because what happened to me was that in 2002, 2003, when the whole war in Iraq and the Middle East started gearing up, right? I was up to the gills in a work project that meant a great deal to me. And so basically for those 5-6 years between 2002 and 2008, I just didn't pay attention to the news. I was just so wrapped up in my own shit that I would just sort of like catch the headlines, and just like for most of my life, I've been a news junkie. But that period of my life was the one time that I wasn't a news junkie. Okay. That 2002 to 2008 period, where I just didn't really follow it because I had shit that I was doing. And retrospectively, I realized that I just followed the headlines and just the general sense. And I remember thinking, oh, they're going to war. Oh, they must have a pretty good idea that this Saddam Hussein was mixed up in this 9/11 shit. And that was as far as it went. I mean, I actually lived 3 blocks away from the World Trade Center and moved from the U.S. exactly 30 days before that fucking happened. I lived in 85 Pearl Street, apartment number 4. If you look it up on a map, you'll see it's literally 3 blocks away as the crows fly from ground zero. And I, at the time that it happened, I was like, holy shit. And I knew a lot of people. I knew several people who actually died there. But after 2002, I tuned out. And I assumed that Saddam was part of the 9/11 conspiracy, because that was the vibe coming off the news, because I was like looking at it in such a detached way. And I suspect now, I'm much older, and now that I'm once again a news junkie, I realize that the vast majority of people get their news that way, kind of like a process of osmosis, and they just sort of like catch the headlines and they figure, oh, this is what's happening. And I realize how propaganda is so effective, you know. So that's
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. They just have like a general feeling for what's going on, and they just kind of go along with it because they're so busy. And it makes sense. Most people today are, they're working, more than 40 hours a week if they do have a job. So of course they're going to be busy with family and school.
Yeah, and that is how it's supposed to operate. This is why they have.
So, of course they're going to be busy.
This is how they operate. They hope that no one's paying attention. They hope that everyone is sort of just letting them do whatever they want behind closed doors, and meanwhile they're pushing really subversive stuff. Like as you said, 2002 to 2008, you didn't really care, but what did you miss? You missed the Patriot Act, which had some big consequences,
or the election of Barack Obama.
Yeah, and
the greatest president ever.
So true.
Yes.
So true.
Yeah. I worship
Solidarity.
Barack Obama to this day. I have a picture of him right next to the Virgin Mary is Saint Barack, and I worship him every day. And you who don't, you guys are Nazis. You guys are fascists. Yeah.
So true.
I'm so glad America finally got a black president.
Yeah.
Racism is over.
Everything got better.
Racism was defeated.
Yeah, it was. There are no racial tensions. We're living in a post-racial society.
No,
but of
racism
course,
just got worse because then people
Saint
realized how
George,
that blacks
Saint George,
existed again. But if you just read the headlines, this is what I talk about. They will say specific beats over and over again, so that if you're just reading the headlines, if that's all you really interact with, the specific beats of black man killed by cop, of whatever, of racial discrimination happening, of evil white man. This is actually something that happened really recently. They talked about a militia marching in New York and threatening the government and saying that there was no legitimate form of government in America, and they used a picture for that article of a bunch of white people in a militia, but it was a black separatist group who was actually doing this.
I remember this.
If you just read the headlines, that's what it is, because they are using these psychological beats to literally Pavlov people into believing the narrative and the reality that they are trying to set,
Okay, Wurzel, let me ask you, where do you think this ends?
I think if assuming that we aren't successful or anything, I think it ends with a globalist state.
No. I mean, just go ahead and think. Our side succeeds or fails. I mean, what do you think what would you bet on is the future in 10 years?
In 10 years, I think everything is a lot worse. If anything that I hope starts going through, then I really believe that states are going to start sort of in essence breaking away, in that they will solidify the power of these states and start telling the federal government that they don't care too much about their laws anymore. And that's honestly the greatest hope that I have, that people actually build themselves up, build up their communities, their families, start taking over states and telling the government to go to hell. But I don't see in America being a superpower very much longer. I see an increased globalism. I see a very hard crackdown on sort of just white people existing, more reparations, that sort of thing. They've already, in HR 666, adequately named, they have declared racism, or are trying to declare racism, a public health crisis. But what that really means is sort of anyone right of center is now a terrorist. And they're going to use emergency powers against them, which is insane, which I've been saying for months they're going to do, because that's what they did to change voting laws in North Carolina, where I live. They said coronavirus is a disaster. It's a natural disaster, and that gives me natural disaster emergency laws so that I can unilaterally change voting laws in real time. And they extended the delays. They added more mail-in ballot options. They did all of this stuff to try to flip the swing state.
I just What strikes me is that a couple of years ago, perhaps 4 or 5 years ago, I actually forgot. There was this commentator on Zero Hedge, which is like the website that I always read. And for those of you who don't know, zerohedge.com. That's where you want to be. Anyway, if somebody can put it in the chat, I'd appreciate it. Anyway, on Zero Hedge, some guy was saying, you know something? The way the security system is organized and whatnot, the United States is a turnkey totalitarian state. You just need to just put the key in and turn it. And the whole country is going to be more totalitarian than the Soviet Union or communist China at its peak. And I'm like, yeah, the shit that's going on now. And now, for instance, this bullshit that the Biden administration is going to have volunteers going door to door to make sure that everybody gets vaccinated. What the ever living fuck?
Yeah, I think that America has already, or the left in America has already consolidated power, and now it's just going to be, well, humiliation and kind of persecution time. I mean, the dissidents will never be able to gain power in America as long as America continues to exist. So I think that the only thing that we can do is build alternative structures and wait until the system itself collapses.
Well, reforms, quote unquote, like people have to be disillusioned with leftism in order for something to happen. I'm betting on the transgender movement, but you know, hopefully some other things would happen and people would be convinced that leftism is a disease.
So like with the transgender movement, is that it's really just following in the same line as the civil rights movement in general. So it like they're tapping all the same boxes as like, you know, why it doesn't affect you. It's,
yeah, I know, but
it's the next logical step, and that's why
it does make sense. The civil rights narrative is just all over ourselves. Like it was used with the gay marriage. Now it's like we both know that. What I'm saying, however, is that even right now you've got a lot of detransitioners. Plus, the science is not on their side. Like even Sweden releases based science, right? And like they're in a very big trouble right now with all this science, and soon they're going to have this detransitioner pushback, and it also stumbles upon feminism. Right now they might think like they're winning, but there really is going to be a pushback against this. Like
it seems like it's going to just result in some kind of like vague conservatism, like, oh, things were actually better when we didn't like transition. This was a little too far, but we're going to go back.
It will, but we could use it to our side and to push something forward. Like what I'm hoping for, like I'm really hoping for, is like a genuine respect of freedom of speech and like real science, so that science is not like you know, repressed or something, and that's we could make like based in good movies, and you know, it's going to change people's perceptions.
I don't think that we're going to be able to change this by a cultural reactionary movement as much as you know, they're not going to let us through.
I agree.
We're going to have to wait. We're going to have to we're just going to have to build alternative structures.
Yes, but however, when they're not when they're banning movies, when they're banning Abigail Schreier's book, when they're banning Donald Trump off the platform, or Nick Fuentes, it exposes them as authoritarians. It exposes them as people who are afraid of truth. It exposes them as people who are concerned about their power, and the optics of that are really good. Yes, it's bad when we're getting banned. However, it just tells you that they're just a bunch of scary Stalinists who are afraid of a single man that might change an opinion or something. I'm actually like, I'm thankful they're doing it, honestly. Like they're digging in their graves.
I feel like
I think it's a good strategy. I think freedom of speech is dead, and I don't think that like they're really suffering from killing it, because they've framed it as we are censoring only opinions that are violence, that can cause real life violence from online opinions. This is the hate speech angle that they're pushing so hard for, you know, and it's so obviously like politically motivated, right? Because Black Lives Matter can come out here and they can say, oh, we want all white people dead. White people are devils. They should be fucking dead. We should hang them. We should kill them, bury them, dig them up, and kill them again. And that causes no real life violence. They can say that they want cops dead. And that does nothing, even though there's cops who end up dying from Black Lives Matter people, right? But as long as they can maintain this alternate reality that these people are living in, they are going to continue to believe this excuse that they give them, because they have confirmation bias. They want this to be true. They have been told that these are the enemies, that these are evil white supremacists, which are the greatest threat to America. And of course, it makes sense to censor them. I went on a panel with Destiny and with a few other leftists, and I expected that they'd understand that maybe free speech is a good thing. But each one of them argued that, of course, these people need to be censored. Of course, they need to be taken off the internet. And they would defend, Black Lives Matter. It's a completely different issue. It has nothing to do with it.
No, you can't talk to those guys because they are hardcore grifters. See, the thing is, the great thing about being demonetized on YouTube and all the mainstream tech platforms is that, see, you can speak your mind. You're not trying to cater to your audience. You're just saying what you actually think. So you're not trying to make a few more bucks by saying the right thing, the right talking point. But the leftist people on YouTube, breadtubers, they're all in it for the grift, because YouTube is deliberately prioritizing them and giving them a shit ton of money via ad revenue for them spouting the right orthodoxy. So they have no interest in having actual debates. I didn't realize this at first. At first, I thought, like you probably, that these guys they're smart enough that I can have an actual...
You thought they were like dissident leftists. When in reality, they're liberals with a communist paint. They're not
especially Bosch.
Especially Vosh. He's just a woke liberal.
What the average Republican needs to understand, right, is as much as you say, I don't agree with what you say, but I'll fight to the death to make sure that you're allowed to say it. I believe in total free speech. You can say whatever communist bullshit you want, and I don't agree, but it's okay. They do not offer you the same right. They do not feel the same way.
They want you
the reason that they want to censor is because they recognize that their own positions are contradictory. That's the only reason you would want to censor somebody. If you were confident that your opinions, that your ideas, your ideology is consistent and logical and reasonable, you'd be all in favor of open debate. It's like the recounting in Maricopa County.
I wanted to say something real quick.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Sorry. But so here's the thing about leftists in general, right? Is that the leftists are kind of like, if you think of all leftists, they're kind of like an onion, right? They have a woke core, a radical core that kind of radiates outward towards say, the surface is Elizabeth Warren, and then the deepest is that woke, academic core. And it just kind of radiates outward. But the difference with the conservatives or the right Republicans in America is that there is no core. Right, we basically have this donut where conservatives are kind of running around in circles around the same stuff over and over and over again, and they completely ignore their radical core completely, and because of that, they just end up shifting, every 5 years.
You're
honestly
right. Good way to look at it. That's a good way to look at it, like a donut. Yeah. With the core removed.
Yep.
Yeah,
we still have all of our political institutions completely controlled by Jeb Bushes, of these guys who are just as willing as the left, mainstream left-wing politicians to screw over their base, screw over the American people in exchange for lobbyist money and stuff like that. And that's why we're having a little civil war right now, right? Because all of the Kevin McCarthy's and the whatever his name is, the turtle motherfucker with 12 chins. These guys.
Who's that?
I can't remember his name off the top of my head. I usually, trash talk him, but you know what I mean. Mitt Romney's, Marco Rubio's, those types.
Well, they're all. I mean, essentially,
they don't care about what they say, right? If they came from a Democrat area, they'd be Democrats. At their core, they are baseless, shifting little entities that are just sucking up money and saying whatever they think they need to say in order to maintain some semblance of public consensus for them. And that's what the core of right wing, that's what the mainstream right wing is right now, which is absolutely like horrific. And it's an insane reactionary position to say perhaps corporations should be to the benefit of the American people. Perhaps American foreign policy should be for the benefit of American people. Perhaps policies in general should be for the benefit of American people.
Republicans and the conservative right, they are almost indebted to the idea of the free market, and that's why they won't abandon it. They won't say, well, these corporations should be reined in. They should be stopped from doing what they're doing. Like, even Trump had the opportunity while he was in office to hold these tech companies to account, and he did not.
Yeah, he said
I
because
think
he liked Mark Zuckerberg, the way he talked, that's why he didn't do it.
He's a fucking cuck. Oh God, I despise Trump, to tell you the truth.
think
Yeah.
And that's
greatest-
and
Well,
Trump has been
is-
the most populist president that we've had in a long time, and he did nothing, which should go to show that
Yeah.
we should have no faith in the conservative movement at all.
Yeah, Republicans and a lot of base conservatives still do not realize that the left wing is at war with them, with their race, with their culture, with their religion, with everything core to their identity, and honestly, just at war with America itself. They want it destroyed and reforged into a new version. And Republicans haven't gotten the memo yet, apparently, or have been paid enough money to not give a shit, and are still trying to act with these people out of good faith when they are in the trenches getting shot at,
I would say that they're turning around, that the Republican Party and most conservatives are turning around and shooting at their own dissidents.
Very true, very true.
Yeah. By the way, Daniel Rand from Patreon asks, how are you guys, young people, your age and his age, where do you see yourselves forming family and dating for the long term? Being in the US, do you guys have any hope?
Yes, I do, actually. So my perspective, and I've dated for the last 6 years. I've been through a 4-year relationship. I've had like several girlfriends, but like I just noticed when I integrate myself into like a group of people, like I got a really good job, especially like in the last couple of years, and I love all the people there. They're amazing. And through the connections that I've made in my own little social clubs in real life, I've been able to meet girls there, and hopefully I have one that I'm interested in dating. So I'm hoping that one goes well, but I have faith that it's going to work out.
Yeah, I have a girlfriend. She's based in Epic, and we're gonna have 10 kids. A lot of guys are like, "Oh, how do you date a leftist girl?" Well, you're the
Don't talk about politics.
You're the
You change your mind, right?
through your
Change your
Chad
mind.
confidence. You you can persuade them to believe anything in 2 days, and it sounds really mean to say, but I have a thing for alt girls. I like the emo look. I've dated a lot of leftists. Not my recent girlfriend; she was already based when I started dating her. But there was not one that within 3 days wasn't based in red pilled. Like it's up to
women,
you to be a man worthy of them.
Women tend to
women are
adopt
more compliant. Women are of the psychological traits, the big five, ocean, openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. Women are the most compliant across the board on average. And so they will change their political opinion radically in order to comply with the social group that they want to belong to. And if you have like very strong frame about the issue of politics, I wouldn't say 2 days. I'd say like in 2 weeks, she started changing her mind, and in 2 months, she's on your side. That's pretty much how it works.
Yeah. Plus,
it goes to the degree that your relationship is on the rails. The more solid the relationship goes, the more she's willing to change her mind to be with you, to be on your same track. Yeah.
And I don't even necessarily think that like you need to really convince a girl on politics, because like, as I'm concerned, like most of the politics that we talk about, it's like, okay, we're going to talk about it with other people online or talk about it in real life to some people, but we don't necessarily always need to convince our significant others that, of all of our political positions. Sometimes they'll disagree, and I think that's fine.
Yes, yes.
In my own experience, it's always been look, I grew up in Chile during the Pinochet dictatorship, right? And I was in favor of the dictatorship. I think it was, and retrospectively, the more years pass, the more I'm in favor of the Pinochet dictatorship, especially as things are going in Chile right now. But anyway, girls I dated, yeah, I had a thing for leftist girls because they're hotter. Yeah, it's bottom line. But yeah, it would take about 2 months to see how, El Tata Augusto, Grandpapa Augusto was just the way to go. And yeah, I turned them into Pinochetistas. It was really fucking easy because they want to agree. That's the Achilles heel of all women.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like traditional marriage and traditional gender roles always gets a bad rap. And I think a lot of the issues from men who like just sort of like denigrate women's work into being cooking and cleaning. But it's really a yin and yang type thing where men have weakness, women have strength, and where women have
Complementarianism.
strength, men have weakness, and women are much more of a group creature, and a lot of their role also is also maintaining societal fabric and maintaining morality. And obviously, if women are tainted, then all of the society will crumble. And
Yeah.
because of that, they're like more group creatures. They believe the consensus of the group which they believe or which they are a part of or which they think is righteous much more than they believe their own eyes. Where I
Yes.
find that men believe their own eyes more than the consensus of the group. And it's not that one is superior to the other; it's that both have their own roles. And like the men and women are different. In case you didn't realize,
To say a few words, I also think there's another like biological factor to it. Men just simply have like more testosterone, and testosterone tends to correlate with like standing your ground and going against the popular consensus.
Well, I'm not so sure about it's testosterone, but what I do realize is that, see, on a biological level, on an evolutionary level, rather, you see, women evolved because a woman cannot bear a child on her own and acquire enough resources to survive. She needs a social group to help her survive with her newborn child.
Yes.
And so she needs to dedicate her energies to having a strong bond with her social environment. Whereas men survive by going out into the world and hunting the woolly mammoth, which is the trope I always use. And so in order to hunt the woolly mammoth successfully, you have to actually pay attention to the objective reality around you. Whereas a woman, for her to survive, she has to pay attention to the social reality that's going on around her.
Yeah, that's why women are lower in geometrical like orientation type of testing.
Yeah.
They're high in verbal testing on the IQ stuff, but
the
lower in
spatial
that.
relationship,
Yeah.
they suck at it. Yeah.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. We need to always apply evolutionary analysis. Like that
Yeah.
what pisses me off the most is that I go to like university, and sometimes I take like social psychology courses, and even evolution is even mentioned. It's always in like a bad turn, like, oh, it's non-falsifiable or something like that. How is it non-falsifiable?
No, it's totally obvious and self. I mean, I'm a hardcore Darwinist. Okay,
Same.
Here's the issue. Simon Baron Cohen, who's like a cousin of Sacha Baron Cohen, the comedian. Well, Simon Baron Cohen is a big-brained doctor and psychologist at Oxford, and he did a study of newborn children, and he measured their eyesight, where their eyes would go to, and boy babies, I mean, literally hours old, their eyes would constantly move towards moving objects, like a spinning wheel or something like that. Whereas girl babies' eyes would continuously focus on the eyes of another person. You see, and it's hardwired into us. Girls pay attention to other people. Boys pay attention to the world around them and shit that moves, which makes complete sense. You gotta spot the woolly mammoth before you can hunt the son of a bitch. You know what I'm saying? And
Yes.
yeah. But anyway,
Absolutely.
that's way too based for the normies. They
Yeah,
don't
it is
believe
way
in
too
it.
based.
Yeah.
The ideology, sorry, the religious formation or the religious faith in equality just presupposes that, you know, everyone is equal. If there are any differences between men and women, it's because they've been socialized differently, and that's like a religious dogma, right? And if you're questioning it, you're suddenly like a phobe or like ist or, you know, whatever.
Well,
Um,
the thing that I find really funny about the whole notion of equality, it's a central bedrock of liberalism, of enlightened liberalism,
yes, yeah.
which is the foundation of the Western democracies. But you see, it's a myth. People are not equal, and not just between men and women. We all recognize that there are some people who are just better, and not just better at one thing and not as good as no, they're just better. There are some men who are just simply superior, and it's an ugly truth, but it's the truth. We all have this illusion that we're all the same, and that any kind of differences between people might be where I'm better at
It's due to
running,
the environment, yeah.
yeah, or the environment, something like that. But no, there are bottom line people who are better than others, and that's the truth. And I think that, to tell you the honest, my honest thinking is that what's going on in our contemporary culture is a realization or an acceptance or whatever that there are some people who are just superior to others. And this, of course, implies that there's going to be a group of people who are always going to be at the bottom of the social hierarchy. And this realization is what's driving a lot of people a little bit insane.
Yeah.
That's my thinking. After decades of trying to give everybody all the opportunities and eliminate all kinds of biases that might have been present, all the biases have been removed. There is no such thing as structural racism. There are all these laws and all these programs to eliminate any kind of racism whatsoever, and yet still different groups of people achieve different results in the social hierarchy, and there is nothing to be done about it because that's how people are. And I think that is what's driving people a little bit insane.
Yeah, unfortunately, like I would say even further to that, the biases have not been just eliminated. They're now turned
Oh
upside
no,
down.
they're on
If
the
you
other
look
direction.
at
They over
Stanfield,
yeah,
yeah, women have like 2 times more chances to get into it with the
yeah,
same
and they still
qualifications.
fuck up.
Yeah, I know, but like, and you can't even talk about it. Like, I mean, it's so ridiculous. Like, if you're talking about it, it doesn't mean you're hating them. It just means that, look, there are differences, and how about we structure our society accordingly with those differences, or we could use those differences as an explanation for why, like, women are, you know, they're worse in sports than men, or like, you know, whatever other thing.
I think what a lot of based individuals don't want to admit is the fact that for years people have made like woman, get back in the kitchen, make me a sandwich. They've made these type of jokes, right?
Yes.
And what you're doing by doing that is reinforcing the idea that woman's work is pointless and it is not important, and that the only work that causes meaning in someone's life is man's work.
Yeah,
And then
yeah,
you are confused as to why women are trying to do man's work to feel
yeah.
meaningful and accomplished in their lives.
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right. Because I was thinking about this a little bit, and the notion of the homemaker, see, of the wife as the homemaker, it's denigrated, and yet the whole notion, think of it, the term homemaker, the person who makes a home, as distinct from a house. A house is just a place where you live. A home is a social network among family members that gives you not merely comfort, but it gives you support and encouragement to pursue a life outside of the home that you as a man need to pursue in order to provide for your family. And that is such an important thing that we, based in red-pilled motherfuckers, often do not give enough emphasis, or, as Wurzel, you're saying, sort of like mock by saying, go into the kitchen and make me a sandwich, woman. But that work, that homemaking work, is essential. And I think that that's very on point, Wurzel. I very much agree with what you're
I
saying.
think that, I mean, the most of the stigmatization in our culture is coming, well, from the mainstream media. I mean, I'm not sure how many people on our side are actually saying, like, you know, a woman get back in the kitchen, or demeaning women's work. I think
Yeah.
also another factor as to why women are going into the workforce is that, like most people in the Western world, they are materialists. So they think that, well, you know, if I go to work, then I can have my own money, so I can buy my own things. And if I buy more things, then I get more happy. And
I'm
that
not.
seems
I
to be a
disagree.
pervasive
I
attitude.
disagree. I disagree.
Oh,
I think
why?
that women aren't going into their careers for material reasons, but rather because there's a great deal of social pressure. Because a good-looking woman, can find a rich guy that can provide her with all her material needs. But I think that
Right.
she's
But
pursuing a career because she's been so pressured. Oh, you're going to waste your life and getting married
there's
and have babies.
there's also a
I'm
huge
out.
emphasis on being independent and about having your own resources. And I've, at least in my personal experience, I've talked to a lot of women who their fathers tell them, go to college so that you can get a job, so that if things go wrong with a man, then you can, you know, you can be able to support yourself. Like, I've seen that a lot too, but I also think that materialism is a part of that.
Well, in
as
my
well
own
as
case with
overtime.
my daughter, I'm going to tell her quite simply that she has to be a clever girl and find herself a clever guy, a guy with a future who will be successful. And don't pay
Mhm.
attention to how good looking the guy might be. Pay attention to how hardworking and especially consistent the guy is. And that's the guy who will make you happy. The consistent guy who's not merely a hard worker, but a guy who's got brains and determination. So long as he's got consistency, and any
Mhm.
flaw can be forgiven. If he doesn't have consistency, if he's like a mercurial, excuse me,
Mhm.
that's the guy to avoid, because you never know what the fuck is going to happen with that motherfucker. But the guy who's steady, that's the guy you lock down. I'm going to tell her, and I'm going
Yeah.
to tell her the whole point of going to university is to find such a man, and don't fuck around, and to have babies before she's 25. Absolutely, I don't have a problem with that. That's exactly what I'm going to tell her, because all this bullshit. I see all these women, and I've met many of these women who are, in their 30s, no family, no nothing. They got a cat and their career is at a standstill because they climbed the pyramid. But of course, it's a pyramid. At each level, the competition gets fiercer because there are better, stronger candidates at every level. And so she's in her mid to late 30s. She's stuck in her career, not advancing. She has no close family. She has no children of her own. Her life is a fucking disaster. And then she's 45 and she is basically hitting the bottle every fucking weekend and trying to fill up her hours. She's just existing. She's not living anymore. She's just she's a cog in the economic machine, and she knows it. And she has nothing for herself, nothing to give her joy or happiness. That is
You're
a
right.
fucking nightmare.
Yeah,
I would
you're right. You're
tell
right, Coach Red Pill. I hate capitalism too.
Well, well, you've probably seen this CRP, right? Because you've lived in so many different countries.
what?
But I myself have lived in Italy for a little bit.
Yeah.
And the difference in culture, I think, all stems from the Industrial Revolution. Like the Anglosphere countries or the Northern European countries were hit so hard with the Industrial Revolution and the worship of the clock and of seeing ourselves as we live to work rather than work to live. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
exactly.
And that's what we prioritize. That's what we think is so absolutely important. The measurement so important in people's lives and in philosophy is where people derive meaning, and how does one live a meaningful life that has impact on others and generates happiness for themselves. And the answer from a lot of northern countries after the Industrial Revolution is you be a cog in the system. You work as much as you can, as often as you can. You do your due diligence, and you'll live a meaningful life. And that's really not the case in at least Southern Europe. And I probably, as Spain colonized most of, South America, I doubt it's the case there as well. But we have absolutely been decimated by the Industrial Revolution.
It's pretty bad in South America, by the way, like in terms of social views, and they're even poorer than Russia. And Russia, they're pretty based in many regards. So I think it's like a cultural thing, not necessarily a material condition that determines this kind of behavior.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. The presence of money isn't the importance, but rather how people view the accumulation of money or their place in the in the economy.
Yeah, well, I mean, not just money, like it's many things, but yeah.
Well, I think that the problem is that see, a life to be fulfilling, you have to have something to be striving towards, some objective. And for a lot of people throughout history, it had been, having a family and growing and providing for that family. It gave people meaning, but that meaning has been stripped away and it's been turned inward. And it's told people, you'll find satisfaction in your work and you'll find happiness by way of your material possessions. I can speak from firsthand experience that once you have like a lot of money and can buy whatever you want, you realize that it's kind of empty. And at first, of course, you go through a whole shopping spree period. And that's what happened to me. When I started working in Hollywood, I started making a lot of money as a writer. And, it was so much money that, I could go in and buy a very expensive car just like that, and to go to expensive restaurants and travel and just have a high old time. And that was fantastic for a while. But then you kind of like realize it's just emptiness. And you're just sort of like wasting time. And also, you start getting addicted to shopping because everything that you buy is an additional jolt to your dopamine receptors.
Yeah, I can actually attest for this. I've noticed. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
No,
So,
the point I was saying is that, see, we've been raised to just consume shit and not find meaning in the pursuit of some overarching goal. And that's where real happiness comes from. And for the majority of people,
Yes,
the majority of people who are not particularly talented or not particularly capable, frankly, the meaning that they got was from providing for their family and working to grow their family. And our society should have been encouraging that. But for the sake of lowering wage prices, we encourage people to just work. Men, women, everybody. Work.
You're judged by your productivity in the world.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's a disaster. And I'm speaking as a hardcore conservative, that I think that this, homo economicus is a fucking disaster. Yeah.
Can I just add to what you were saying? I'll try to apply like an evolutionary lenses, and how this industrial society, and why we're in the place where we are. I think that, for example, the elites, they tend to have higher IQ, especially those philosophers, those kinds of people. And in the 19th, early 20th century, they came up with nihilism. They have embraced it, and they have embraced all these social teachings, and their meaning was in them. But now, like during their time, the society, like the regular commoner people, they were religious. They were finding meaning in that sort of a thing. But now, once those, I guess, nihilism and all this sort of stuff became the dominant, like where the elites have pushed those views onto the population. Now the population they're maladaptive. They're nihilists, and they're not smart enough, as the elites are, to just pursue something, like even with this nihilism, to find something to be pursuing meaning. And the suicide rate, like everything bad, I think it happened because of those elites that they're in the old age have transmitted their, I guess, spiteful ideas on the population.
My thinking is that, see, I've always thought that too much stability is a bad thing. That too much stability not only breeds complacency, but also brings about certain viciousness. Viciousness, not in the sense of being bad, but in terms of having vices. Okay. And I think that certain vices that have arisen in our elites come from the fact that there's been too much stability. And the principal vice is at once a weird kind of compliance of not raising your head or disagreeing with the crowd, so that you just flow with the crowd on the one hand, and on the other hand, an extreme selfishness. Our system of finding elites, which worked so well for so long, at least in the United States, has morphed over the last, I'd argue, last 60 years or so, into this bizarre system where we get these people who are very compliant, who jump through every hoop to go to the right university, get the right job at the right company, and do the right thing and rise in the corporate hierarchy. They are, in order to do that, they have to be very compliant. And yet at the same time, they are extremely selfish and they don't give a shit about the wider society. Past elites cared a great deal about American society, but our contemporary elites don't give a shit about America. And I'm not saying that they are anti-American. It's that they are indifferent to America. They're only concerned about themselves, their own successes. I went to an elite university. I went to an Ivy League school. And all of the people I met there, none of them had any ambition to do anything that would be for the benefit of the society. There was nobody there who wanted to write the great American novel or write some deep, philosophical treatise. Nobody who wanted to do something that was truly for the social good. They wanted to do stuff that would look good on their resume, like working on the Peace Corps during the summer or some shit like that, right? But they didn't actually want to help the society. They just wanted to get what looked good for their resume so that they could get the best corporate job possible. That's what's happened to our elites over the last 60 years. This evolution, this class has become a bunch of cowardly, highly selfish individuals who all they care about is getting their own. They live by the motto IBG YBG. I don't know if you guys have ever heard it. It means,
what does that mean?
I'll be gone, you'll be gone. That's a motto in business, in corporate analysis.
They're all trying to just
get their own, and it doesn't matter the negative effect of something. They got theirs, and they'll be gone by the time the negative effect happens.
Right.
Like what's happened with the federal deficit, for crying out loud,
or the boomers.
Yeah.
Well,
this was a problem with the boomer generation. This has been a pervasive problem through all of American culture, especially since the 1950s. Everybody thinks, I'm going to die. I need to get as much stuff as I can before I go and live the life that I want to live, and considers only their purpose and not really the purpose of other people in their own lives, and think that they can just make all these decisions by themselves. I think one big issue for Americans is that they don't know how to live with less. And I think we would all benefit in our country if we could just learn to live with less. Like, if you could have like a very simple car, no debt, a relatively low paying job, then that's more than good enough. But nobody wants that. It seems everybody wants like these.
No, they've been trained. They've been trained like fucking seals to want. Get subscriptions to Hulu so that they can watch an unlimited amount of things. They buy cell phones and even though like for some reason people have $1,000 cell phones.
Got to buy this new iPhone.
Yeah, you know that you know how much like auto debt loans are in the United.
No, actually,
I would estimate about $10,000.
Hello?
It's more, huh? Can you hear me?
Yeah. There was some internet.
Oh, okay. Apparently, auto loan debts are like higher or on the same level as college loans in the United States, which is like I kind of pointed out the auto industry earlier, just because of how like insanely exploitative it is of the average person, that they're all just creating cars with all these like widgets and gadgets that don't really benefit the average person at all. And they're even cutting making like economic cars. Like, for example, Ford used to release the Ford Focus. They no longer release any new models of the Ford Focus, and that was their only economy vehicle that they had.
It's all F-100, F-150s rather. Yeah.
Everyone wants more and more and more and more.
You can always
try,
get yourself a ladder.
Well, there's no incentive to have it any other way for the political elite class. If you're some corporatist, of course you want to make a very materialistic society because this is your consumer base, which is becoming more and more materialist, right? And if you are one of these political elites trying to make change happen and trying to do it without people noticing what is happening behind closed doors, bread and circuses is most effective on a population which is highly materialistic. Bread and circuses. How is anyone ever going to tar and feather you if they're too busy with a beer watching the football game?
Yep.
That's a very good mental picture. Yeah. Look, guys, we've been going almost on 3 hours, so I think that we'll wind it down. I just want to tell you my fearless prediction for what's going to happen to America. I think that the commie totalitarians are going to take over the whole fucking thing, and I think that it's going to go from worse to worse. And I think that the last vestige of the resistance is going to retreat to Alaska. Alaska, because it's easily defensible. It has its own source of revenue. Potentially, anybody who sets up shop in Alaska will be able to defend it fairly easily. And I think personally, and I'm not kidding, I think that when the Civil War breaks out, the American communists will win, and the American nationalists will retreat to Alaska, just like the Chinese nationalists retreated to Taiwan. It's defensible and it's far away. And the communist the communist Americans, the wokesters, whatever the fuck you want to call them, are going to have so many problems in the mainland that they'll be able to sort of like ignore Alaska for a good long while. And Alaska will become like Taiwan. Yeah, that's my thinking. And I know it sounds insane, but to tell you the truth, I'm totally black-pilled about the chances of survivability of America. And the way things are going and the insanity that's flowering right before our eyes, I don't see it any other way. I think it's just going to be full-on civil war and total collapse. You guys are free to disagree, and if you do disagree, tell me why.
No, I mean, I guess that's true. I mean, I haven't really thought about where American nationalists would go. I think like within my lifetime, I'll see a collapse of the American empire, probably within your lifetime, Coach Red Pill. But I think that when that happens, it's just going to be there is going to be a lot of, I think, anarchy, or the other stronger countries are going to come in and kind of like sort out things over here, like probably China will come over here. They'll sort out like the American states and
oh God,
reinstall.
That I don't. That's too far for me. I don't think.
I think Americans
Chinese
will be
invade America.
I don't think Americans will be able to kind of like structure anything out of whatever comes next.
My thinking is that America, it looks to me, okay, it looks from my vantage point that Americans in general are just exhausted. That they're just exhausted. They just can't do it anymore. They don't have the energy. It's just like, just leave me alone. I just want to just drink and eat and watch TV.
Yep. Yeah.
So what I think about the prospects of that, I think that what's more likely, or at least like what I would hope is going to happen, is we're going to see some sort of a peaceful balkanization of America, because I feel like there are a lot of people who hate each other in America. They wouldn't want to live in the same country. And I would hope to, some people to establish a state in Idaho. Some people could like let the Californians go their own way, like it's whatever. But I think that the notion to succeed will be coming from the right wing, because it benefits the left the way things are. And I think there'll be a lot of like labeling people who want to be like separatists or secessionists as some sort of a state terrorist, like they did with the I guess Capitol riots. I don't think that in Alaska like the climate in Alaska is very cold. Like it's colder than in Norway. I don't think a lot
I've
of
been to Alaska. I've been to Alaska. I've driven all over the Alaska, and it's not that bad. It's not really. No, it's not. It's not as bad as you think. No.
Okay, well, I'll be sure to visit it.
Doesn't
Uh,
Anchorage have like the highest crime rate compared to other U.S. cities? Like
I
a
don't
really
know.
high.
I don't think so.
No, I don't
don't know.
think so.
Are you
Look
sure?
at Chicago, Detroit, those places, not Anchorage.
Yeah, I somehow seriously
I'll
doubt that
check it right
Anchorage
now,
is more
actually.
dangerous than Chicago. Chicago, for my money, that seems to be a lot more dangerous than Anchorage. Yeah. Wurzel, what do you think of my insane scenario?
I don't think they're gonna let you run away. I think if they've proven anything, it's that they're going to chase you to the ends of the earth and make sure that they win. I think if you try to go and run away to Mars and establish a Mars colony, they would follow you there. And when it comes to like everyone always talks about like civil war, like oh, whenever they come to take our guns, we're gonna pick them up and we're gonna give them to them.
That's
Yeah,
I
all
think they're
bullshit.
going
That's
to be far
false
too busy
bravado.
watching the NFL, watching a bunch of people throw around footballs and drinking beer to do anything. As you said, it seems that a lot of Americans just want to sort of be left alone and be allowed to grill and watch, sports ball in peace. And I think when the decay starts hitting different, when it starts getting a bit more intense, they're going to continue doing that. And they're going to complain on Facebook. They're going to complain to their friends if they feel like they can. But that's going to be pretty much all the disagreement that there is to be had. And if you try to
so-
run away to Alaska,
A question
I hate-
to the panelists. A question to all the panelists.
Okay.
The question is, yay or nay? Will we ever return to the good old days of the 1990s?
No.
no.
I think if it ever does come, it comes from people making themselves the greatest version of themselves that can be.
Okay, so no.
No.
Also, I hate to be a pain about the Anchorage thing, but I wanted to just bring this up because I looked at it and it said the
They're
29
safer than 3% of U.S. cities, right?
higher than 97.8% of U.S. cities. Yeah, the
How
crime
big
rate.
is Anchorage?
That's a good question. Let's see.
I don't think it has more than like 100,000 inhabitants or something. It's tiny.
200,000, I think.
200.
Yeah,
Okay.
200,000. So it's
290,
smaller
yeah.
than some of the bigger cities out there that with 1 million inhabitants.
But it's the crime rate is high. I checked it as well.
Yeah, I was curious about that because like I don't understand why Anchorage is actually so crime ridden. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me because it's not like it's because
it's not like let's not talk about it.
the ethnic distribution. Okay.
Okay,
we'll have to look
that.
deep into
We'll leave it
that.
at that. And before you go, guys, stay on the line because I just want to give you my private thanks. And to the audience listening, we've been going for 3 hours, so I think that we've bored you enough with our insanity.
Yes.
But I just want you all to please subscribe to Censored Anon, Wurzel Root, and Ubersoy, as well as our guest who had to depart earlier, Wheat Waffles. Their links are all in the description below. They're great channels. I thoroughly enjoy watching their content, even when I completely disagree. And I urge you to subscribe to them and give their content a try. So thank you very much for being on, and I will catch you all next time.